distributed by NPR. I'm Todd Zwillick. I'm here with you all week here on 1A, so we'll talk soon. This is 1A.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from the Cy Sims Foundation. Since 1985, supporting advances in science, education, and the arts towards a fairer, more just, and civil society. More information is available at cysimsfoundation.org. And from Sleep Number, offering 3 mattress collections with personalized features and the goal of providing people more choices based on their needs. Learn more at sleepnumber.com or a Sleep Number store. This is NPR.
Local issues, national headlines, and your perspectives. Join us for Boston Public Radio with Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan. Coming up next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you and members of the GBH Champions and Beacon Circles. These most generous annual contributors lead the way in sustaining GBH as a public media resource available and free to all. Learn more at gbh.org/support.
From Cold War space races to modern lunar missions by multiple nations, follow humanity's journey to the stars. The new series, Once Upon a Time in Space, continues tomorrow at 9 on GBH2.
If it matters in Massachusetts, it's on In Common. This weekend in Northampton, a little bit off the beaten path, on the outskirts of Salem, from across Massachusetts and around New England. With reporting from 3 newsrooms across the Commonwealth, you'll get a statewide perspective you won't find anywhere else. What's happening, why it matters, and how it connects us, from the Berkshires to the Bay. Listen to In Common, Saturdays at 2 on GBH 89.7.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Braude, head on BPR and GBH and NEPM. The rescheduled White House Correspondents' Dinner finally happened Friday. Trump spoke for more than an hour, attacking journalists, elected officials, women, Democrats, even his own cabinet. Should the event have happened at all? And should reporters have walked out of the room at the first signs of his deranged, disgusting speech? Call or text. Then it's food policy analyst Corby Kummer with the latest on lettuce bugs, cyclospora, and Globe business columnist Shirley Leung.
I'm Marjorie Egan. The second hour is a special live performance from Tiny Habits as the Salt Lick Incubator launches Songs of U.S. and a discussion with Reproductive Equity Now, one group trying to expand late-term abortion access in Massachusetts. Then we'll end the show to hear from you. Jim has shaved his head. It's certainly a choice, a bold choice, very shiny, bold choice. Call or text next with your thoughts on the beautiful or not bald men all around us. It's next on Boston Public Radio.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Libby Casey. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is departing for the U.S. today. He'll meet with President Trump as uncertainty mounts over the future of the war with Iran. NPR's Emily Fang reports.
Friction between Trump and Netanyahu has been growing. Netanyahu is being accused by his critics in Israel of fracturing his relationship with the U.S. and failing to stop the U.S. from signing a nuclear energy agreement with rival Saudi Arabia last week. The U.S. has also been pushing Israel to withdraw from land inside Lebanon that Israel has occupied this year. Trump has criticized Israel for continuing to strike and demolish homes inside Lebanon after a ceasefire. Plus, another ceasefire with Iran last month was not popular in Israel. A survey released this week by an Israeli think tank finds Israelis consider a nuclear Iran plus conflict within Israeli society as the 2 biggest perceived threats to their country. Emily Fang, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
French President Emmanuel Macron is leading a crisis meeting from Paris today as wildfires continue to rage out of control in southwestern France. NPR's Eleanor Beardsley reports summer camps in the region have been canceled and more than 200,000 people evacuated from their homes.
The France 2 TV news broadcast showed firefighters battling a wall of flames rushing through the forest. They described virulent, unpredictable, and unstoppable fires propelled by high winds and fed by a landscape parched by 3 consecutive heat waves this summer. The flames are devouring forest, farmland, and villages just 20 miles from the southwestern city of Bordeaux. Many Bordeaux suburbs have been evacuated. The military has been mobilized to help the firefighters, and European Union firefighting planes and helicopters called in to assist the usual French Canadair water skimming planes. Eleanor Beardsley, NPR News, Saumur-en-Auxois, France.
Maine Democrats have a new candidate for the U.S. Senate. Troy Jackson was picked at a state party convention over the weekend. He takes on incumbent Republican Susan Collins. Jackson replaces Graham Plattner on the ballot, who dropped out earlier this month after rape allegations, which he denies. Maine Public's Steve Missler says Jackson was able to quickly consolidate support with politics similar to Plattner's.
Democrats are hoping that his working-class bona fides and populist style could matter in this race. He's a logger who helped lead a high-profile labor dispute more than 20 years ago that really launched his political career. And while his positions on social issues have changed dramatically over time, his pro-worker pursuits have not. And he and Democrats think that Collins is especially vulnerable given that big corporations and wealthy people are spending heavily to support her reelection.
With less than 100 days till the general election, Jackson faces an uphill fundraising battle, and Collins has a comfortable war chest as she runs for her 6th term. This is NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. President Trump continues to be a thorn in the side of Harvard University, and this time it's about Harvard's China-linked financial aid for Chinese students. The Crimson reports that Harvard disclosed more than $36 million in gifts from sources attributed to China and Hong Kong that carried financial aid preferences that were tied to students' countries, nationalities, geographic regions, and or international status. About $4 million of that went explicitly to preferred Chinese or Hong Kong students. And now the gifts are at the center of a Department of Justice investigation into whether Harvard violated federal civil rights law by accepting foreign funding that carried preferences for students from particular countries, presumably China. The DOJ has not reached a verdict about whether Harvard violated the law. It did, however, direct Harvard to turn over underlying gifts and information about the students in question. And our colleagues at the Worcester Guardian are inviting residents from across Worcester to help shape the future of local journalism through its newly established community. The volunteer board serves as an advisory role, providing feedback on community concerns, emerging issues, and the information needs of the city's residents as the nonprofit news organization continues to expand its local coverage. According to the Worcester Guardian Board of Directors, the initiative is designed to strengthen connections between the newsroom and the community while ensuring coverage reflects the people and the neighborhoods of the publication that the publication serves. Deadline is October 1st. Applications at the Worcester Guardian website. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Cy Sims Foundation. Since 1985, supporting advances in science, education, and the arts towards a fairer, more just, and civil society. More information is available at cysimsfoundation.org.
You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're going to be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow. The Dropkick Murphys' Ken Casey is going to zoom in from Europe.
They're on tour. It's great.
I know. We're going to talk to him about that and other things. Wednesday, also at the Boston Public Library, Governor Maura Healey will be with us from 11 to noon. And I was going to wait till 12:30 when we're going to discuss this in detail. Sure. But Jim has quite dramatically, he shaved his head. And it seems to be making him very happy.
I walk in this morning. I did shave. We're going to discuss this at 12:30 with all you guys. I walk in this morning.
In detail.
And I say to Marjorie, so what do you think? Now, normal people would say, oh, great. It's great. She says, pauses for a long time. She says, well, if you're happy. So now that was really great. Thank you for your...
Yeah.
We'll discuss it with listeners.
Yes.
12:30, 12:35.
And we have a picture.
Yeah,
pictures of
people. People
can weigh in.
Okay, fine.
Okay, but that's not till 12:30.
Okay, so after a gunman interrupted the first White House Correspondents' Dinner earlier this year, this weekend the press gathered for the rescheduled event with Trump in attendance. CBS senior White House correspondent is president of the White House Correspondents Association, Weijia Zhang. Here's what she said.
Our message is this: we are back. We will not be intimidated. We refuse to let an act of violence have the final word.
Well, while it is true that the press was not intimidated by the gunman, they were totally intimidated by Donald Trump. Trump got the final word, ending the evening by putting on one of those stupid Trump 2028 baseball caps and essentially teasing his intentions to run for a fourth term. In between that, his comments were disgusting, demeaning, incoherent, childish. And we want to talk to you about this event. I'm guessing virtually none of you watched this thing, but we did, and we will play you clips in a couple of minutes. Should the President of the United States, who regularly demeans the press and tries to undermine the First Amendment, have been invited at all? Should the press have walked out when Trump made personal sexist attacks against their colleagues? What do you think of their potted plant response to Trump? And by the way, when the Trump, point is made brilliantly by Margaret Sullivan all the time.
Oh, she's great.
When the press normalizes Trump's behavior, it empowers him in so many ways. So it's not just about the press and what it does. And by the way, if you're watching this thing, you could not leave with the impression other than the fact that, as I've said for months here, this guy is totally mentally ill, and he is the most powerful man in the world. 877-301-8970. Why don't you give your quick response, and we'll play some sound.
Oh, well, I think what you said is so true. I mean, sitting there watching that, I think I texted you a couple of times.
So I texted you, too.
I was hoping you were watching it, too, because I sat there and I thought, he's lost his marbles, and he's running the world. And we're in the middle of a war, and who knows what he could do. I was thinking to myself, I wish more people would watch it because they would see for themselves how deranged he is. But I think most people didn't watch. It was a Friday night. They had much better things to do than sit there watching.
So let's play. We're going to play some sound. Here he is. Caitlin Collins from CNN received one of the awards a Saturday night for her reporting on his Oval Office meeting with Zelensky. Here's what Trump had to say about Caitlin Collins a little bit later in the evening.
It's a fake. She shouldn't get the award. It was a fake, but I didn't mind. I said, Caitlin, congratulations. But it was fake. There's no question about it. But she's a young, attractive woman. She never smiles. I said, Caitlin, do you have a smile? Smile. You have a nice position. You're at CNN Fake News. You should be a happy person. So smile, Caitlin. Just smile. But we attack, and I thought Caitlin had really made it big with a major new sponsorship. But then I informed her that it wasn't her on the Bud Light can. It was Dylan Mulvaney.
He is one of the most nauseating creatures, not just presidents, people who has ever lived. And by the way, at that moment, and ordinarily when we talk about courage, we say what we have done in this circumstance. Let me just say this as clearly as I can say it. If I was a colleague of Caitlin Collins, working at CNN or not, the second she made that comment, I would have stood up and walked out of the damn room. The fact that the press stood there to listen to this guy do an hour of demeaning, disgusting comments about elected officials and their colleagues. Let's play another one. Here's a clip of Trump pretending he's stopping a heckler from the audience at the same dinner, and he allegedly is defending the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, against that non-existent heckler. Here he is.
Sir, in the back, don't call him a fat pig, okay? I'm sticking up for him. Don't call him you. You can't do that, sir. You can't call J.B. Pritzker a fat pig, please. All right? Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Everyone's trying to figure out who is that guy? Does he exist? But the nice part is when you do that, the press can't get you because I'm defending a man.
This guy is the president of the United States. And by the way, that was just 60 seconds, those two sound bites out of an hour of nauseating comments.
He went after Obama, of course, as always. Barack Hussein Obama. He went after Bruce Springsteen. He went after
Omar should get out of our country, country.
Gavin News. He always calls them news scum instead of
really clever,
Newsom. Jimmy Kimmel, late night people. I mean, it was just deranged. And then you see the headline. And I used to work at the Boston Globe. I love the Boston Globe, but this headline in the Boston Globe does not begin to capture it. At correspondents' dinner, Trump jokes that he will run for a third term.
How about NPR? NPR headline, "The show must go on," in quotes. Trump makes jabs at rescheduled White House correspondents' dinner. I mean, again, if you don't read Margaret Sullivan or subscribe to her Substack.
Here's the headline on her.
What?
This is Margaret Sullivan, the headline, "The predictable disgrace of the White House correspondents' dinner." And that's what it was. And she's right that by downplaying the insanity of this, we make him look like he's sane washing is the term she's using. It so right. There's something normal about it. It was insane and demented. And I just, like I said, I just, monstrosity is what
we'll get your
Jim
calls
Acosta
in a second.
Called it too.
You know, part of what she says is the press goes because they say not out of respect for him, but respect for the institution. And she writes in her Substack, "Let's try a small thought experiment. Should respect for the institution of marriage mean that an abused ex-wife should insist that her former husband be invited to, say, the annual July 4th family party?" I mean, it is grotesque. And again, put yourself in the same position. You're at a dinner or an event where a colleague of yours, we either work with him or her, or you just know them from work, is demeaned by the boss, the CEO, the whatever. Do you just sit there politely? And their great protest was to not applaud. I mean, that is frankly, as far as I'm concerned, not enough. If you chose to invite him, which was a huge mistake, as Margaret Sullivan says, then the least you have to do is stand by your colleagues. And none of them did. The number's 877-301-8970 is the number.
Here's some text. "We are obviously frogs in boiling water because the country is cooked." And here's Carla from Seattle here. She says, "It was completely baffling and uncomfortable to watch journalists," she says Washington Post, actually it was the Wall Street Journal, "who came up to the podium to accept an award for the Epstein files reporting shake Trump's hand." He shook everybody's hand. They all shook his hand. And this is...
I don't fault them, by the way, at all. Answer, I thought was demeaning to Trump. Wolf Blitzer is announcing the awards. He, to his credit, he announces them in the most dramatic but honest ways. He did. And each of the stories.
The cartoon. It was the one that had the cartoon of Trump where his signature was on the naked woman cartoon.
Yeah,
remember?
And the guy who took the photograph when the guy passed out in the Oval Office and Trump's staring for it. Get it? I thought it was courageous since they got the awards to actually go over and shake the hand of the guy who they were describing in their photographs and their pieces. They were not the problem. The problem were people sitting in the audience who the organization that invited him and people just sitting there doing nothing.
But we should point out for that story that they won the big award, the Epstein stuff, Trump sued them, the Wall Street Journal, for $10 billion. And it's I've said this a million times, but it's very interesting that the Wall Street Journal, owned by Rupert Murdoch, has been merciless on Trump, going after him in every turn. Meanwhile, Fox News, also owned by Murdoch, has been defensive or evading Trump's worst
Can we play
actions.
one more soundbite before
Sure.
we get to the calls, and then we're going to get to... Here he is making his usual insults directed at now Senator from California, Adam Schiff.
He's a terrible person. He's a liar. And I called him Watermelon Head because he has the largest head I've ever seen with the smallest neck, pencil neck. How does that big, fat, ugly head stand on a little pencil neck?
Let me say it again. That guy is the president of the United States. He represents everybody listening to this show right now. And the people in the media who you read, who you subscribe to, who you pay to get coverage of, sat there as Trump did and said what he did.
You know, and think about this. If you were at a company meeting and your boss got up and talked about somebody's big fat, one of your colleagues, big fat ugly head with a pencil neck, or somebody being a big fat pig, you would say the boss has lost his mind.
Virtually none of the coverage, by the way, mentioned that point. That's a really, really important point. Even the coverage that was good, that accurately described how out of control and disgusting Donald Trump was, failed to mention the fact. Oh, and you also mentioned me this morning. He slept through half of the dinner.
He slept.
How about mentioning that also?
He was asleep.
Let's take some calls. Zach in Springfield, you're first. We know a lot of you didn't see it, but you at least heard some of the sound.
He woke up, Jim, when he gave his own speech. But for the first beginning of the show, he was sleeping.
Zach in Springfield, hi, welcome. Hi.
So I broadly agree that, how to handle.
Oh.
We got to put you on hold, Zach. See if you can maybe go to another room and get better connection, and we'll go back to you after we take another call. Just was breaking up every other word.
I'm sorry.
877-301-8970. Sophia in Boston. Hi.
Hi, I'm from Westfield. Normally with Trump, he's like a child. So we have to basically play with him. And someone who is a woman and those sexist comments were not okay. Honestly, the PR needs to get better because it's unacceptable from a point of view of journalists who've worked so hard over the years.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's a question of PR. It's a question of you can respect the institution, but when the man who fills the position behaves in such appalling fashion, there's got to be some response, and there wasn't. Everybody just sat there. I think they thought they were doing something really brave by not applauding, and it's simple. In my opinion, I think Marjorie's was not enough. Sophia, thanks for the call. 877-301-8970. By the way, I was worked into a frenzy over this thing. Thank God I could text you. This is late Friday night that he is speaking, and it was just, and you know what was also even worse? He actually made one good joke. He said something about how I'll read it. I'm not even going to play it. He says, I hope everyone got to enjoy the entire delicious beef tenderloin. It's very special beef. I want you all to know that Bobby Kennedy right here personally ran over the cow with his car. That was funny, actually. It was funny. But a lot of the coverage said, well, he decried violence in politics, even though, by the way, he's encouraging violence in politics and celebrates it. And he made one funny joke, but they go on to say, it's not but. The primary thing he did was insult every single person he's got a problem with. And they took it. Zach in Springfield, let's try you again. Hi.
Thanks, Jim. And hello again.
Perfect.
Marjorie.
Hi, thank you for calling.
So, yeah, obviously, I think that his conduct at the dinner was dreadful, but the media, President Company excluded, they kind of forgot how to Trump.
We're losing you again, Zach.
Zach, I'm
We'll give it
sorry.
a third try
It's
if you want to give it a third try, but we only lasted a few sentences. 877-301-8970.
Again, Margaret Sullivan characterized it beautifully. She's on Substack, by the way, if you want to read her. She's also on The Guardian, but this was from
New York
Substack.
Times, former Washington Post. Yeah.
She said he let loose a hate-filled rant aimed at journalists and his political enemies and anybody else who has failed to suck up to him at every moment or support his lawless regime. And I mean, it's true. And they got to ask themselves, I mean, I hope they're doing some soul searching over there. He could be there next year, too.
Well, he said he was coming back next year.
Yeah.
And by the way, while he mentioned Iran in the end in passing, did he mention the members of the service who lost their lives in the prior week? Of course not. I mean, it was as nauseating an hour plus. You know what I realized? I'm not sure I've ever watched a Trump speech from beginning to end. When he first ran in 2016, I watched excerpts and I watched parts of live speeches. I don't know if I ever saw a whole speech, and I want to change everybody should watch Trump. And remember we were discussing last week whether or not the media should have, the mainstream press should have covered the speech he gave that Thursday night, that national speech. In retrospect, and my position was it's far better because he lies to play excerpts. People should watch a speech in real time and do fact checking afterwards because it's the only way you get the full impact of where he's coming from. James in the car.
Before we get to James in the car, I just must point out that we are getting a couple of text
messages. I know. I shaved my head. I've been wanting to do it for 30
years.
Okay,
here's one. She's in your corner, Jim. She says, I'm a single and I'm 60 on multiple dating apps, writing to weigh in on men shaving their head. Balding is terrible, but clean shaven bald head, very sexy. Thanks. Bald beard is sexy. Plus a beard is very sexy too. Not so much without the beard. I call that look the egg. Anyway.
Okay, fine. So at 12:35, we're going to be discussing it with you.
Be confident, gentlemen. Enough. Own it. You're being confident,
I'm
Jim,
owning it.
you're owning it.
I'm not confident at all because you said to me, well, if you like it, I guess it's okay. Anissa in Cranston, welcome to the show. Hi.
Thank you. I won't comment on your bald head, though I'm a fan.
Thank you. Well, you did already then. Go ahead.
Yeah. I have been thinking about your comment of how passive the correspondents were at the dinner when Trump insulted the news media, and all they did was fail to clap. crossed my mind that they might have been instructed by their corporations not to do something as obvious as walk out, because Trump would then sue the news corporations that they represented.
Well, by the
So
way,
they
let me
were
just say, half of what you said, I bet is true. I bet they were instructed to have no reaction. There is no basis, not that Trump needs a there's no basis for suing someone for walking out of a speech. And he's, doesn't mean he wouldn't do it, but there's no basis for that. And having said that, even if you got those instructions, I'm really glad, Anissa, thanks for the call. I wanted to make this point earlier. You know, we often talk about courage, and your response often is when I'm decrying lack of courage. And by the way, including my own lack of courage from time to time, you often say, well, a lot of people can't afford, you take a chance, you get fired. Every single reporter in that room is prominent enough that if they got fired by their company, they'd find another job in the media. This is not,
and
these
frankly,
are not reporters working for a small newspaper in West Virginia. These are the most prominent national reporters in the country.
Okay, about midway through that speech, you realize how horrible this was going to be. No one would have been fired for walking out. I think the company
and if
would
they
look
were, they were.
so ridiculous to fire somebody for walking out when he was assailing people the way he was. In this just kind of, it was almost torture to sit there and watch. And he went on for an hour.
Well, he always goes on for an hour plus. 877-301-8970
Here's a texter.
Is the number.
At the very least, they should have stood up and turned their backs on him
That's
as a
another
sign
great
of
point.
solidarity.
That would have been fine. Turn your chair around. Turn your chair around. Yeah, exactly. Where are we going? Skip in New Bedford. Hi, Skip. Welcome.
Welcome. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you.
I'm actually a stand-up comedian, and
Oh.
I just have to say, yeah, I'm actually a stand-up comedian magician. But as a performance, and it was
This is like intolerable. Your line's not working either. Skip, thank you. It is us? Okay, no, I can't handle it. No more calls. Marjorie and I will talk. I just can't handle it.
It's our problem. We're
It's a
doing
problem on
something
our
wrong.
end, yeah.
I'm
Skip, I'm really
sorry.
sorry, and all the others whose calls broke up, I'm sorry, but I can't take crappy, not the content of your calls, but the fact that they're breaking up.
The other thing Trump was talking about, how great he has been for the press, that they're all going to be broke without him. Nobody's going to give a damn. Nobody gives a damn about anybody else except for me. This is what he said. I mean, it was. And then he talked
be out
about
of work when I'm not here.
Then he talked about how much more of a vicious speech he was going to give, but he changed his mind about giving a vicious speech, and then he went on to give a vicious speech.
Well, also,
I mean, you just sit there and you think to yourself, we've got 2 more years. We've got 2 more years,
2.5
more than 2
years.
more years. What could happen in the next 2 years? And I'm very worried because you read about how the Democrats have got like zero money. They're like $2 million in the hole, and the Republicans have got something.
128 million.
Yeah, so I'm a little concerned.
This is the national parties.
About the ability to spend money on ads at the rate the Democrats are going. Because again, if the Democrats don't at least get the House, who knows?
No, it's really scary.
Who knows?
It's really scary.
What could happen?
Actually, we have a call that isn't breaking up, apparently. Kate, you're calling from Connecticut. Fingers crossed. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Yes, thank you. Many years ago, I was a guest at the correspondence dinner, back when the media wasn't portrayed so devilishly as it is today. And for the first time in many years, I did not watch the correspondence dinner this year because I anticipated exactly what was going to happen. And the media was either being overly kind or naive in believing it would go any other way.
Well, that's probably true. And Margaret Sullivan's point is, I think I said this earlier, is he shouldn't have been invited to begin with. Respect for the institution doesn't equate with normalizing the person who fills the seat in the institution. Kate, thanks for the call. And let me be clear, because Kate reminded me of something.
Against the New York Times, by the way, were all thrown out.
The New York Times.
They
withdrew them. They withdrew them.
Oh, I thought they were thrown out.
No, they withdrew them.
Oh,
But regardless, they issued subpoena. One of the guys, the Tyler, whatever his name is, who won the award for something, was one of the New York Times reporters who was subpoenaed by the White House, and he's taken the stage there. It was just, but let me just say, and I should have, and I think I speak for Marjorie here too, most of the reporters who were being critical of are fabulous at their day job, do really strong, excellent reporting. All I'm
Caitlin
reflecting.
Collins is very good.
And also most of the people in the room who
Yeah.
you recognize are terrific.
The Wall Street Journal reporters, Andy Linsky,
They're
we've
brilliant.
had her on the show many
Yep.
times.
Former Boston Globe
Boston
before
Globe,
she
yep.
went to the Washington Post and then the Wall Street. And by the way, Annie Linsky, the beauty of this, do you remember Annie Linsky was the first person to write a story in the mainstream press about how Joe Biden was losing it?
That's right.
She was
Trashed.
eviscerated
Yep.
for having done it. And it turns out she had told the truth and it happened. So I'm about to give advice that I guess is maybe I'll give cautiously. I would watch at least a chunk of the Trump speech if you have any doubt that this man is as disgusting and unable to carry out the duties of this office as we contend he is. Check him out. Watch as much as you can handle, and then maybe send us a text or
Okay.
an email.
We
By the
are-
way, we have some great music coming up at noon from Tiny Habits.
Oh,
so
unbelievably
other than
great
the mood
music.
that we said at the beginning of the show, there are great things.
And we have a detailed discussion about Jim's shaved head. That's coming about 12:30.
I don't know how detailed it's going to be. It's going to be a discussion. It's gonna be a discussion.
Coming up after this quick break, our food policy analyst Corby Kummer on the latest cyclospora twist. That's that horrible disease people are getting. Can we eat lettuce? Can we eat raspberries, arugula? Jim just stuffed himself with cilantro on the
No,
way
I didn't.
back.
I chopped it and then I didn't eat it.
You chopped it. Thank God.
I didn't.
Okay, he was too busy shaving his head.
Maybe I
I'm
was.
Marjorie Egan, Houston Browdy. You're listening
Rubbed
to
it on my head
BPR.
afterwards. Broke out.
You rubbed it on your
I
head?
rubbed cilantro all over my head. I didn't want to waste it.
Yeah.
Green spots in the back. Well, small green spots, but the camera luckily is down.
Okay. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Cyclospora is next. I'm Marjorie Egan, Houston Browdy. I'll be right back.
Adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities face some of the highest unemployment rates in the workforce. In Haverhill, one nonprofit is trying to change that through food.
There is a candidate pool of people that are very skilled and reliable, and we overlook that a lot of times.
From a training kitchen to a new downtown cafe, meet the people proving what they're capable of. That story later today on GBH's All Things Considered.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Morningside Music Bridge, returning to Boston. The summer program shines a spotlight on young classical musicians from around the world, with concerts now through August 7th at New England Conservatory, mmb.international. And Smith College Museum of Art in Northampton, presenting Composing Color, paintings by Alma Thomas from the Smithsonian American Art Museum. More at scma.smith.edu.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Tomorrow we joined on Zoom from Europe by Ken Casey, leader of the Dropkick Murphys. We'll talk about his tour there and his tour of an ICE detention facility a month or so ago in New Jersey. Wednesday, live from the library, 11 to 12, Governor Healy joins us. Joined now on Zoom by Corby Kummer, Executive Director of the Food and Society Policy Program at the Aspen Institute, Senior Editor at The Atlantic, and a Senior Lecturer at Tufts Friedman School of Nutrition, Science, and Policy. Hey, Corby.
Jim, I am staying on until the shaved head discussion is entirely run to ground.
What do you think? Be honest. You can be honest. I can take it.
I would grow your hair back, but you asked.
Yeah.
Okay, that's two.
Because he's got a beard. That's the
Okay,
look. You
okay,
have the
fine.
receding
Okay,
hairline. You have the beard. That's the look. But Jim has gone whole hog, and it's all gone.
It's all gone.
It's all gone.
It's all gone. Thank you for that.
Temporarily, we hope.
Okay, let's keep
Okay.
temporarily, we hope.
Okay, we know where Corby stands on this one.
Okay.
All right, so Corby, I was dying to talk to you today. I mean, the cyclospora thing is really scary. We don't know. Can we eat? Jim just bought a bunch of cilantro, rubbed it on his head.
No,
You're supposed to eat
I
it.
actually threw it out right after I bought it. I didn't realize it was on
I
the
thought
list.
arugula was okay, spinach was okay, kale was okay. Now I don't know. What do we do here?
A couple of things you can do. First, you can follow the practice that a friend who family was from Turkey and whose twin sister lived for years in Turkey always did. And when we were visiting her at the old Filene's basement, now the gorgeous Millennium Tower, she simply added white vinegar to the salad spinning water. She had just been to the farmer's market in Somerville, I think, and had beautiful greens. I mean, we completely trust them. But still, just as a practice, usually in countries where there's any doubt, everyone will wash their greens in a solution of like 2 parts white vinegar to 1 part water, and then rinse it again. And that helps kill a lot of microbes. Not all of them, but it's a standard practice. And then you dry it off. But I think that maybe somebody in your own studio was saying, I had a grilled romaine salad. And
Zoe had a grilled romaine salad. Is that
Zoe Matthews said, I couldn't stand the warm. I love grilled lettuce. I love grilled lettuce. I love cooked lettuce. So I want Zoe to get used to it.
But how about where's this going to, by the way, the best story of the whole day by far, the New York Post has a story about how a Whole Foods market, I guess in New York, is selling Taylor Farms lettuce. That's the alleged source, for 50% off. And the headline is half the price, all the diarrhea, which is a pretty good line. So what is the status of the investigation? Are we 100% clear that it's Taylor Farms? What's the deal?
Oh, absolutely not. It could be a bunch of other wholesalers. They probably grew their lettuce in central Mexico. Whole Foods, which seemed to be ridiculous and cynical, at least said, Taylor Farms has very clearly stated in all of its public announcements that anything grown in the U.S. has not been the subject of investigation. It was only Taylor Farms de Mexico, which only sold wholesale, did not even sell on supermarket shelves. But because FDA and CDC keep releasing new subjects of investigation, sometimes saying what those companies are, usually saying what they're not, it's cast all salad greens into doubt. So there's nothing that is saying Taylor Farms of the U.S. is absolutely fine. But what I want to add always is Michigan does have thousands and thousands of cases. Michigan also has the best, most highly staffed disease investigating team in the United States, left over from COVID, and because they're a state that believes in spending money on public health. One of the reasons we're hearing so much about that state is because the other states' departments have been decimated by budget cuts. So Taylor Farms, way out front because they're responsible, and when anything was linked to them, they immediately were called. Taco Bell called up their friends in the White House and said, remember how many millions we gave to your campaign? We want you to hold that announcement until you're absolutely sure. You know, these companies and states that are doing the right thing, we think it's all confined to them. It isn't.
But wait a second, isn't the problem, when you mention that the disinvestment in disease investigation stuff, the feds are leading the pack. And
well, they talk in this story about the USD Department of Agriculture got rid of its microbiological criteria for foods, and then they talk about all the other things they've laid off. They've laid off people. The Food Safety Inspection Service lost 913 jobs. The Food and Nutrition Service lost 564 jobs. They talk about more than 20,000 workers have been fired under DOGE, I guess, and that's part of the problem here for detecting these outbreaks.
You bet it is. And the administration is saying, oh, we're just as robust as we were before. It's a lie. With tens of thousands, more than 20,000 workers from USDA left last year, all of the people specifically you just mentioned, for example, they were about last year when they all had to quit to release new guidance on Cyclospora, our friend. So it was entirely predictable that these things would happen and that the feds would be caught shorthanded as they are, even though they're claiming that they're just as well-staffed for Cyclospora investigations. They're not. It's a lie.
Corby, one thing I either misheard or I don't understand is you said that one of the states that is in best shape in terms of disease investigation is Michigan, but you also said the most cases are in Michigan. How do those two things intersect?
They go together very well because they have the staff to investigate and count the number of cases.
Oh, so there may be many more
we
cases.
Hear about lower cases in other states, but they don't have the staff or the ability to count or to trace them.
Well, that's like
Certainly,
Trump. You
there's a
remember
huge
Trump's great
outbreak
line? We'd have fewer COVID cases if we were doing less testing. That was the way he figured that we could solve that problem. So the reasons it's not lower numbers elsewhere is because we don't have the infrastructure that they do.
It might be both, but we don't know. And I just have to put in a plug and say they've cut the count of food insecurity every year. And so they've cut the absolute gold standard primary number to know how many people are going hungry and don't know if they can get enough food month to month. They cut it out so that they don't have to know the bad news or share it.
We're talking to Corby Kummer.
So the bottom line is that if we're going to be eating leafy greens, we have to wash them very well. And you talked about that: 2 parts vinegar to 1 part water, or cook them, or we can just eat corn.
Right, exactly.
Can we eat corn?
I love corn.
Yeah, corn is coming
Had
into
a corn
its own in
omelet for
August.
breakfast, actually.
Yeah, corn omelet for breakfast.
I did.
Okay.
So, Corby, I never heard.
Go to the farmer's market.
That's a very good point.
Go to the farmer's market. We have one tomorrow right outside the
And
Boston Public
I am
Library.
part of the CSA from
Jim
Red
is part
Fire
of the
Farm in
CSA,
Western
that's
Mass.
right.
Granby, Mass. So, Corby, I never heard of surveillance pricing at supermarkets. Now that I've heard of it, I'm disgusted. New Jersey has outlawed it. Massachusetts has a bill pending that apparently is going nowhere. What is surveillance pricing?
It is a way that supermarkets can pretend that they're going to give you discounts based on your previous purchases because they like you so much. But what they're really doing is tracking how much money you're willing to pay for raspberries or for peanut butter or for Prego tomato sauce. And then they will charge you the top of the line because you were willing to pay it before. So they are somehow able, when you get to the register, and I think it only happens, I don't think that they've got monitors in every aisle, although we certainly read about Amazon installing those in Whole Foods. I think it's when you enter your loyalty card or barcode at the register, hoping you're going to get terrific discounts, you might also get very much higher prices that are going to obliterate all those discounts you think you're getting.
Well, let me ask my usual naive question about legislation. Why would any state not ban this in 1 second, as fast as they can draft the bill? Because the grocery market industry is so powerful? Is that the only reason?
First, is so powerful. Second, because every story both you and I read about surveillance pricing is ambiguous and mysterious. Like, how are they actually tracking it? How many stages is it going on in? When does it happen? Everybody's unclear on it, but New Jersey has already banned it. And there's this bill you were saying isn't going anywhere in Massachusetts. Maryland and Connecticut, they enacted laws meant to protect consumer privacy. So it's about privacy. I think we should all be getting up in arms about it as we learn more specific facts, which are a little hard to come by right now.
So, Zohran Mamdani is the new mayor of New York City.
Oh, really?
He's been very popular so far in New York City. Trump doesn't like him. I think has he called him a communist?
I think he does like him, actually, in a weird
but has
way.
he called him a communist?
Yes.
I thought so. But anyway, communist or not communist, he's not a communist. He's opening these grocery stores, and he's talking about how they're going to have 30% discounts in cities-run grocery stores on things like meat, seafood, pasta, bread, yogurt, butter, nuts, rice, and beans, other stuff at regular price, but give people the basics. And I know other stores don't like this idea, but with the crisis...
I don't think Corby liked this idea either when Mamdani was running.
Yeah.
Am I right about this?
Yeah, I was saying I don't think cities should be in the grocery business because it's so hard to make a margin. But what I think now is I understood, as I didn't know then, that it was all going to be in city-owned buildings, so they wouldn't have to pay rent.
Exactly.
Rent is a huge part of the overhead that keeps margins down for food markets and supermarkets. Apparently, a lot of the problems of the Boston wonderful chain from Doug Rao, which was Today Table, was that the name of it?
Daily Table.
Daily Table, yeah.
Daily Table, thank you.
It was great.
Was very expensive real estate leases that they signed. Okay, so if Mamdani really has found the solution from city-owned buildings that are in good enough shape to use, and he might put in city money so that these subsidized prices, they're lower because the city has decided to spend money on and subsidize produce, then he could put the rest of the country to shame. So I would love this experiment to work because aside from tough talk about ultra-processed food, what the administration has to be doing now, besides putting in regulation and laws that really will reduce the amount of ultra-processed food, is subsidizing fresh produce and meat so that people can have the better food that the administration is calling for them to do, and learn how to cook it. And the administration, that's what we might be talking about, cut all of the education out of the SNAP program for no reason.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
It was effective.
Yeah. And we
Okay.
should point out that what he's subsidizing is the basics, so that you would, I said before, rice, beans, yogurt, nuts, produce, so that he's not subsidizing like potato chips and things like that.
We should add one more thing to that, though. For the people who say, why isn't my local mayor, if I live in a big enough community, or maybe a regional thing, he's only opening one up front in the Bronx, and he is pledging that by end of his first term, so that's 3+ more years, there'll be one per borough. So the point is, it's not an easy nut to crack, so to speak, kind of thing.
No, but it's kind of nice
not
to
at
see
all.
somebody.
It's tremendously expensive.
But isn't it nice to see somebody doing what he said he was going to do? Open these grocery stores and have free childcare for a certain ever-growing number of 2- and 3-year-olds in New York City. I'm not sure.
Trump brought grocery prices down on day one, like he promised.
Yeah.
So it's two guys on the promise. Can you expand upon, for those who don't know, these nutrition education programs the feds used to do? What are they doing, and what's the value of them when they're not being eliminated by people like Donald Trump?
Well, first of all, if you tell people, go out and buy some beans, go out and get some fresh vegetables, if they are working 2 jobs and they have no idea how to cook them, or that beans take hours, there's no chance in the world they're going to cook them. You have to tell them how. You have to see how it works into their daily lives. You have to figure out what's the culture they grew up in. Where will they actually want to eat this? How can they make their kids want them? That's part of what SNAP-Ed, which was originally funded as part of food stamps, I think in 1968, but it didn't really get going until the 90s because Congress didn't actually put money into it until the 90s. So these education programs, they also were able to divert money from SNAP-Ed, SNAP Education as it was called, into helping subsidize local farmers markets and food pantries, and really terrific programs to get fresh produce to families that needed it. But most of all, it was this knowledge of how do I make it? How do I make it appetizing for my family? And how do I make it fit into my schedule? So it's really, it was a very comparatively low cost. I think it was $568 million a year. That sounds huge, but then SNAP was $99 billion a year. This is making that money go so much farther by having people actually use the food they're buying and be encouraged to want to buy more fresh produce.
So
and here's another thing. We were talking about you can't count it. You can't. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Let me make this point, though. So the feds were saying, well, they weren't really reducing people's weight. It wasn't really working. So let's just stop spending money on it. Well, one of the reasons was because the original money for bad follow-up studies, counting health metrics and reduction in weight. They said, that's too expensive. That's not part of SNAP education. So now, as somebody was pointing out in the article, the feds break something very deliberately and then say, look, it's broken. Forget it. We should walk away.
So before you go away, speaking of walk away, so if you encountered, let's say, I don't know, The Rock or John Malkovich later today, after you shook their hand, would you say, I'd grow your hair back as fast as I possibly could? Would you say that to Malkovich and The Rock?
I might not say it, but I would think it.
Well, a lot of the texters are very enthused. John from Westford, he calls all the time. He says, now that you've shaved your head, Jim, we finally have something in common.
Excellent.
And somebody else says, I've been married to a bald man for 20 years. He always says, God only made a few perfect heads. The rest he put hair on. So there you go.
Bless them all. Corby, it's good to see you regardless. Thank you. Take care of yourself.
Corby Kummer, Executive Director of the Food and Society Program at the Aspen Institute, a Senior Editor at The Atlantic, a Senior Lecturer at Tufts Friedman School of Nutrition Science and Policy. Thank you very much, as always. Coming up after this quick break, Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung joins us to discuss a local competitor to OnlyFans developed in a Harvard lab and insurance costs for electric cars. Jim with the bald head, he probably knows all about that because he has an electric car. A lot of men drive electric cars with bald heads. Did you know that? Yeah, you need a convertible now.
Okay, fine.
I'm Margie Regan. He's Jim Browdy, listening to BPR, GBH, and NEPM, and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Discuss what I do.
If I
really,
had an
do
electric
we?
car,
Do we?
you know what would happen to you?
What's that?
You wouldn't be able to do it anymore.
No,
like
I can. By the way, I can disclose this. I charge in two places. I'll be open about this. I charge down my street.
Okay.
There's a city-sponsored charger. It's one of the medium-speed chargers, like 20 miles an hour. And we happen to broadcast from the Lenox Hotel.
That's right.
Oh, we do have Shirley?
Yeah, Jamie
okay,
has.
let's introduce
Jamie
her.
has an electric car. He doesn't get to charge up at the Lenox Hotel.
Well, can I explain
Jim
something
Browdy
to you?
gets to
Can I
charge
say
up at the
this?
electric hotel.
Is Jamie the star of the show, or is he not? I mean, I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to say that. Excuse me. I take that back. Delete that from the tape, please. In any case,
Jim is the star of the show.
Okay,
Shirley.
Marjorie, let's move on.
I'm kind
misspoke.
I'm kind of an accoutrement
well, if
over
you had
here.
an EV, maybe you'd be allowed to be charged from time to time, too. Okay. Now, we're joined on the phone, apparently. That should work well, by Shirley
Hi,
Leung.
Shirley.
I haven't described who she is yet. She is Boston Globe business columnist, co-author of the always delivered to your inbox and fabulous Power Play newsletter with John Chesto, and host of the Say More podcast. And cross my fingers. Are you actually there or not?
I am. Oh my goodness, we don't get to use Zoom. We're talking the old-fashioned way.
The old-fashioned way, yeah.
And you don't get to see Jim's shaved head, so you can't weigh in on the shaved head. We're going to show a picture of it later on.
No, I think we will probably.
It kind of looks like Mr. Clean.
Okay, Marjorie's so happy. She's so happy.
Okay, so Shirley, Jim was criticizing members of the press corps for the, I don't know if you saw the correspondents' dinner on Friday night, but it was pretty bad. I mean, Trump was really horrible to people, one insult after another. He thought the press corps, at least some members of it, should have stood up and walked out. What do you think?
Well, it was a very bizarre redo, right, of the correspondents' dinner. Our colleagues were there again, and, usually everyone gets dressed out. It's full of celebrities. This time it was more of an obligatory affair. I didn't think about that. Should have they stood up and walked out? Maybe. I mean, he was criticized. He was pretty nasty, right?
Very nasty
to journalists there.
Yeah.
Okay, so wait. Let me give you an example.
About another term.
Let me give you an example, if I can. Let's assume that you're at a table with Globe reporters and editors, maybe the owner, whatever, and let's pick John Chesto, your colleague on Power Play, gets an award. And after he gets an award, sort of like Caitlin Collins did from CNN, the CEO of whatever, the head of the industry group that is sponsoring the dinner, proceeds to say everything that comes out of John's mouth is fake news.
It's a lie.
Never smiles, a lie.
He's
it's
ugly.
Disgusting, all this sort of stuff. Would
He's
you
sick.
and your colleagues just sit there quietly and do nothing? Turn your backs, walk out of there. I think the press disgraced itself, not just by inviting Trump, considering his desire to undermine the First Amendment whenever he can, Shirley, but when their colleague, whether they worked at these outlets or not, Annie Liniski, your former colleague from the Wall Street Journal, got an award for the Wall Street Journal's reporting on the Epstein files and Trump. Would you have just sat there if a Globe reporter was trashed?
I mean, I wasn't there, but the way you describe it, Jim, it does sound like the journalists there should have said something, should have done something, or at least, it's not too late to just say something now, but that has been the criticism of the press, right? That we let Trump get away with a lot of things he shouldn't.
Yeah.
Well, when you mention a comment after the fact, CNN's president, is it Thompson? Is that the name of the guy who's the president?
Mark Thompson from the New York Times.
Put out a release, and the release said, the mandatory, Caitlin Collins, brilliant reporter, etc. To my recollection, correct me if I'm wrong, not one critical word of the person who trashed Caitlin Collins. I mean, it's just not acceptable. In any case, you should watch a little video of this and let us know what you think, Shirley, because I think both of us thought the media's reaction was week.
Although we should point
best.
out that Paramount deal has been delayed, probably not in
At least for a
2027.
year, yeah.
So CNN, at least for a year, won't be in the snatches of Paramount. And if the midterms go the way some Democrats hope they will, then maybe the people at Paramount will not see the business interests in continuing to support such an unpopular president.
So, Shirley, there was a story that I was totally unaware of, is that at least one insurance company is dropping coverage for those who own EVs, in part, I guess, because repairs, even though there are fewer of them, are more expensive. This is with the federal subsidy disappearing, this is yet another, I wouldn't say nail in the coffin, but a great inhibitor for people to buy EVs and for states like ours to meet their goals, no?
Yeah, and I couldn't. I mean, it was a little unclear to me. I mean, it seems like the insurer, I think it was Quincy Mutual, was trying to say, no, this isn't the case. We're not. We're insured. We're not dropping all EVs, just some of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I know when I got, I have an EV. I got an EV 2 years ago and a hybrid, and my insurance did go up. But I assume it went up because these are two new cars, and the EVs and hybrids are quite expensive. So that's why my insurance went up. But I can see how these cars are more expensive to repair, even though they're not supposed to break down as much. But I can see why. I feel like with insurance companies, they shouldn't drop you. It's okay to raise prices if it does cost them more. Just pass it along to the consumer. But it's bad news if insurers start to pick and choose which cars they're going to insure.
Well, also, if the legislature shares the state's goal of having more EVs, in fact, I think the million was the target by, 2030 or something, and we're not anywhere near, it would seem to me that they would pass some legislation to either prevent this or, as you say, it's one thing to pass on the cost, maybe spread it a little more broadly. But I would assume that the threat hanging over the head of some who are deciding whether they're going to buy a gas-powered car or an EV may cause them to shy away from the EV. So maybe it's naive, but I think it's time for the legislature to act. We're talking to Shirley Leung.
So this OnlyFans, which I guess you would call an adult online.
Yes, you would call an adult online.
Whatever. Now that it's got this competition.
Platform.
Yeah. Now it's got this competition for something called Mini Stars, another adult platform, which I guess has links to Harvard Innovation Lab. So what's the deal with this Mini Stars?
Yeah, I think is it Mini or Mint Stars?
Mint Stars.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mint Stars.
Yeah.
So it's an adult platform with paid subscribers, and it's got a streamlined payment system for the content creators on the platform. I mean, I was surprised. This is the first I've ever heard of this platform.
Me too.
I was surprised that it came out of Harvard Innovation Lab. Though no one seems to be returning calls about it, and that's one of the co-founders, right? Harvard, it seems like it doesn't want to say anything about it, but also one of the co-founders is a woman as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea, and also private equity, also is news to me that private equity was, investing in these platforms, and the idea is that I guess they separate themselves from OnlyFans, is that the content creators, the women that on this and other adult stars are on this platform get a bigger cut of the content of the proceeds, and so that's how they're different from other platforms out there.
But this is just a pornography site? Is that what this is, or is it something different?
Yeah, I think I think it sounds like it's a pornography site, but it's supposed to be, I guess, more economically favorable, more financially favorable to the content creators. You get a bigger cut compared to other sites.
A bigger cut, and I think I read you also potentially own a piece of the company.
Yes,
obviously a very small piece.
You get a stake in the company, so it makes them owners.
I assume there's some people. When we discussed OnlyFans briefly months ago, you didn't even know what it was. I mean, most of the content is women,
right?
Who generally, for a small subscription fee, do naked videos and some sex videos and that sort of thing. And it is, to say the least, wildly wildly popular.
I guess the lead of the story talks about adult content is now hugely lucrative. So now, even instead of clutching their pearls, as a lot of people in the regular business world used to do, they've decided they don't care about the reputational risk and the legal risk, and they're going in big time because the atmosphere has changed.
Well, except the conventional wisdom, and I don't know if this is true, with the piece about, what is it called, Mint Stars?
Mint Stars.
Mint Stars
Not
suggested
Stars.
that the clients, the women particularly, who use OnlyFans are exploited. And I think they mean financially. I'm not 100% sure by OnlyFans.
Right. I mean, they were saying that the women who make only like very small, they make like $49,000. I think that, and that's considered good. I think, right, for the folks on OnlyFans. I was like, I thought they would get a bigger cut.
Yeah. So Marjorie's going to check it out after the show.
I guess my question though is that I think I thought the point of the story was that 20 years ago you would not have so-called legit people investing in this sort of thing, and that has changed. Isn't that the point here?
Like private equity you're talking about.
Right. Not only private equity investors, but Harvard.
Yeah.
Harvard Innovation Lab is allowing, is helping the innovation in this space.
Can I every time we discuss...
everybody's into pornography is the bottom line.
No, but you're making it seem like that's a recent phenomenon, which causes me to
No,
retell the
I know
story.
it's not
Marjorie,
recent.
Shirley, about 20 years ago, we had was it Frank Bruni who wrote the piece? Who wrote the piece?
Not Frank Bruni. Frank, what was his name? He
Who's
used to
the guy who's the
Butcher
executive director of Veep?
Butcher of Wall Street.
Butcher of Broadway, not Butcher of Wall Street. Oh, my God. Okay, whatever. What's his name? Can somebody look that up? Butcher of Broadway.
He was a great columnist
okay,
for
whatever.
a long time for the
guy
New York
wrote,
Times.
This is like 20 years ago, Shirley. And he writes a piece for the New
Frank Rich.
Frank Rich, thank you. For New York Times Magazine, 20 years ago again, saying that the income of the porn industry, and this is the beginning of the internet, so there wasn't, that almost didn't exist, was greater than the combined revenues of the whole entertainment industry, movies, television, and sports combined. And that was around the year 2000.
I mean, I don't mean to sound like, an old fart here or anything like that, but there's been so much written about the damage pornography does to young children and how 12-year-old kids are up to their eye teeth.
And to the women who are involved in the industry.
And the exploitation and sometimes the cruelty and stuff. It just seemed odd that, I guess, that Harvard University would be innovating pornography in their Harvard Innovation Lab. I mean, am I crazy?
Well, I guess this is what this story is raised, kind of exposing that everybody,
so to speak,
is exposing how it is going mainstream.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess the internet has made it more mainstream.
I mean, the bottom line seems to be you can make a lot of money.
Bottom line, another good one. Thank you.
You can make a lot of money on this, so who cares? That seems to be what these stories.
Well, there's some. I would say there's some desperation too. I mean, that's like saying prostitution, where there's a real debate. You can make a lot of money, so who cares? Well, a lot of people support the industry, assuming it's regulated for sex workers, and a lot of people don't support the industry because they do care and they think there's exploitation in virtually every kind of way. But as you both said, if the Harvard whatever labs are involved, I assume.
Why not?
Of course, they were taking money from Epstein too. So I mean, let's not the labs.
There might be an opportunity for shaved heads.
Okay, Marjorie. Okay, Shirley, I think this is enough, if you know what I mean.
Mint Stars.
Shirley, let me just say, Power Play, if people haven't subscribed, tell them how to do it. It is really, really great. How do you do it? How do you do it?
Oh, BostonGlobe.com. I think it's globe.com/powerplay. Globe.com/powerplay.
It is great. You and John Chesto make it. It's very fun.
And it's not just the core story to which the other one responds. They have great little nuggets of information.
Yes,
it's really
they do.
great. It's
okay.
Great. See you, Shirley.
We've been speaking with Shirley Leung, Boston Globe Business Columnist, co-author of the always delivered to your inbox Power Play newsletter with John Chesto, host of the Say More podcast, which is also great. We say goodbye to those of you listening on NEPM. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to keep going in Boston. We're going to hear some incredible music up next. The amazing, gorgeous Tiny Habits. They're harmony, wonderful harmonies. They're going to perform with Studio 3. We're going to speak with Roger Brown, former president of Berklee College of Music, founder of the Salt Lick Incubator. We'll be right back with Tiny Habits. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. This is BPR, GBH, and NEPM.
If you're a GBH sustainer and you received a new bank or credit card in the mail recently, there's an easy way to update your information. Just visit gbh.org/update and keep your membership up to date. That's gbh.org/update.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And M&M Skylights. Servicing Massachusetts and New Hampshire, their team is part of the Velux Skylight Specialist Network and is committed to helping improve the air quality in homes or businesses. Consultations and more information at mmskylights.com.
And the Boston Speaker Series announcing its upcoming season at Symphony Hall for 7 evenings, including Pete Buttigieg, former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, historian Doris Kearns Goodwin, and former U.S. Ambassador to China Nicholas Burns. BostonSpeakers.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
Welcome back to... Oh, it's you. I'm sorry.
It's
I'm
okay.
so excited. I forgot who was
Jim.
talking.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. He is Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. And we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Tomorrow we're going to be back at the Boston Public Library. We're going to speak with Ken Casey. He's going to zoom in from the Dropkick Murphys European Tour. And then on Wednesday we're going to be at the library again, and we're going to be joined by the governor. Maura Healey should be with us from 11 to 12. Hello again, Jim.
Hello again, Marjorie. To mark America's 250th, the Salt Lick Incubator, Roger Brown, former president of Berkeley, founded nonprofit that provides funding to up-and-coming musicians, has released Songs of U.S., Songs of Us. It's an online performance and interview series featuring artists of all genres performing songs from what many would consider the traditional American songbook, reinterpreting works by writers including Woody Guthrie, Nina Simone, Bob Dylan, Beyonce, on and on and on. You can find the Salt Lick Songs of U.S. videos on their YouTube page searching Salt Lick Sessions. We're joined in Studio 3 by Salt Lick Incubator founder Roger Brown, as I said, former president of Berklee College of Music, and I would say even more importantly, one of the nonprofit's earliest acts who are just spectacular. They've been on the show before. Tiny Habits. Go to tinyhabitsofficial.com. We'll talk about Songs of U.S. in a moment. But let's hear Tiny Habits in our tiny little studio and their adaptation of Dylan's Blowin' in the Wind. Welcome back, you three. It's great to see you.
Hi. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Yes, and how many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? Yes, and how many ears must one man have before he can hear people cry? Yes, and how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the
That was gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Roger, tell us who these people are.
This is Tiny Habits, 3 of my favorite musicians and people on the whole planet. One of the first cohort of Salt Lick Incubator artists. Played their first paid gig in my living room, which I'm forever proud of. I couldn't afford them now, but I got them early, and they, as you heard, have this amazing ability to sing together in a way that you don't often hear in current popular music. And
they no longer have individual names, obviously. Is that correct?
Oh, they do.
They still have names. Do we know what they are?
They do.
Yes,
in fact, they are Sinya, Judah, and Maya.
Yeah.
So I used to joke that they should call themselves the Ya Das, but they never adopted
pretend
that
like
idea.
they think that's funny, actually.
Yeah.
Those were fabulous.
But it's just, I mean, I'm a sucker for harmony, and the harmonies are just beautiful in the way you work them all in, not to mention the guitar playing, the whole thing.
Is that
The whole
James
thing is
Taylor's
great.
signature on your guitar?
That is James Taylor's signature.
Looks it. And you guys played
my
with him, right?
gosh.
You
Yeah,
opened
we
for him?
toured with him last summer. It was amazing.
Oh my God! He was sitting right where Marjorie was about a year ago too.
Oh.
That's pretty amazing for us.
Yeah.
So,
Tell us
about this project.
Yes, exactly.
So we did a project with the Hearthland Foundation, who actually sought us out because one of our Salt Lick artists knew someone working for the foundation. And we said, what can we do to commemorate the 250th anniversary of the U.S. that's not like pure patriotism, but is also not pure critique? So we thought, what if we, as Liza Levy likes to say, my partner in Salt Lake, what if we handed the microphone to musicians and said, tell us, reflect back to us who we are, where we're going, where we've been, using the great songs that our country has created.
So did you guys, Judah, starting with you, did you pick the song or was the song picked for you?
We picked it together.
Why?
It's just...
Since no one could understand what Dylan was saying, you figured you'd articulate it.
It's okay.
Well, no, really, why'd you pick it?
I feel like, we feel like it's sort of an honest sort of, I guess, critique on the country and just the reality of living here. You know, I mean, us as a band, we're very diverse. We're not all the same looking, you know, even internally, we're very different people from different backgrounds. So I felt like it was a nice testament from 3 different people that, you know, live here in this country singing this one song together.
You know, Maya, even though, if let me just say,
yeah, go ahead.
Someone a couple of weeks ago on our show sang a Beatles cover, and I couldn't believe the courage it takes. Is it intimidating, Maya, to do? I mean, this is arguably one of the, 10 most important songs in the American songbook. Is it intimidating doing it or no?
You know, honestly, it doesn't feel intimidating. I feel like because we have each other kind of to hold each other up, it doesn't feel intimidating at all. It feels honestly comforting to sing together.
Let's face it, you wouldn't want to hear Bob Dylan sing. Would you?
You guys like each other?
We love each other.
You really, you do? Okay.
Yeah. So you just pointed out everybody's different places and stuff. So how'd you all hook up, the 3 of you? How did it get together?
In school.
In school at Berkeley. Yeah. At Berkeley. Wow.
Was he president when you were there?
When I was there, yeah.
And what'd you think of him as president? Tell the truth.
The best.
No, really.
Really, I only have good things to
what'd
say.
You think of him?
I only have good things to say.
Really? Anybody else want to say something about him?
Just ditto, honestly. Yeah, the best president like a star
ever.
on campus.
Look at him turning red over here.
So the one thing I would say about Tiny Habits is when I first met them, I used to joke that they're like, lizards on a rock in the sun. They're all curled up around each other, hugging each other at all times. And I felt like it was a really special relationship they had. And I said, part of your challenge is to hold that together. As you're a band, you're an economic entity, you're touring, you're writing, you have all the craziness of the music industry. And I'm delighted to say I think they love each other more than ever, which is pretty hard to do.
Can we get songs of U.S. where we get?
Yeah. So on our Salt Lick Sessions YouTube channel, you can hear all the songs.
Okay.
Old Crow Medicine Show just released. What is the name of it?
Whatever it is, while you're looking.
I'll figure it out.
And talk about some of the other artists other than Tiny Habits who are participating in this thing, Roger.
Yeah,
Brown.
we've had a great lineup of artists. There's a band, Truesdale.
Mm-hmm.
You all remember Truesdale. Mm-hmm. They did a cover of both 9 to 5, the Dolly Parton song,
great.
which is fantastic and really stands the test of time. But to me, the most touching thing they did was Amazing Grace.
Oh,
and technically, Amazing Grace was written by a Brit, but he was a British slave boat captain who delivered slaves to Charleston. And he wrote this song about personal redemption where he almost was killed in a storm. And he said, I'm an evil person living an evil life. I have to be better, became an abolitionist. And now that song is perhaps the most popular religious song in the whole country. I'm not sure people understand the song, but when it says, Amazing Grace saved a wretch like me, he truly was living a wretched life. But I think for the country, it says something about how we can go from some of our darkest history through redemption and try to be a better place.
When you mentioned where you got funding for this thing, was that the Spielberg deal?
Hearthland is associated.
So have you dealt with him?
Pardon?
Have you dealt with him?
Not directly.
Oh, but they've been good to
and
you.
they're very. They want the foundation to lead. They don't want to be in the spotlight over this themselves.
So, you have a new album. Do we still call them albums? Are they albums? Yeah.
Album.
August 28th, right?
August 28th.
I was listening last night to some of the songs have been released already. They are unbelievable. You're going to sing one in a minute.
It's called the
Keepers.
Keepers.
Yeah.
Keepers. Okay, that's what I thought.
So tell us who you guys have been playing, opening for and playing with in the last year or so.
A ton of incredible
Well, let's hear 'em.
people. James Taylor, Sarah McLachlan, Noah Kahn, Gracie Abrams.
Yeah.
A lot of.
And now we're doing our headline tour.
Yeah.
In the fall.
In the fall.
You know, I told this to Jim. He's a big Bruce Springsteen fan. And I happened to be just reading his autobiography, which I was surprised. It's great. But one of the points is he got screwed over by so many people in the music business before the John Landau story and all that. And you thought you saw somebody of that talent. And this is what Salt Lick is doing, is kind of avoiding the screwing over.
Yeah. Even worse, you should watch the Billy Joel documentary.
I did.
Oh my God,
Took him
what
years.
a horrible deal he
Yeah.
signed. You know, when you're a young musician and you want to do anything to have success, and someone comes along and says you're a genius, sign this and I'll make you famous. It's just very tempting and hard, and they have lawyers and you can't afford lawyers. So part of what Salt Lick is trying to do is just find young, super talented musicians and give them the support, the guidance. We don't tell them what to do, but if they come and say, someone told us for 20 grand they can make us famous, we say, well, have you talked to anyone else who does that? Or maybe talk to these three people first.
Yeah.
So we just try to keep them out of trouble. And I do think usually the first deal you sign is not a good deal. So my advice is don't sign a long-term deal. Sign a short-term deal. And if it's a bad deal, next time it'll be better. But, so keeping people out of those horrible early situations is part of what we're trying to do.
You know, Jude, a friend of mine actually saw you at the Newport Folk Festival.
No
And
way.
we read a review this morning, which was
Yeah.
extraordinary. It's how great you guys were. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good. We're just hanging out. It's summertime, you know. It's having a good time.
And what's
Having a
ahead?
blast.
I mean, share with us what people want to find you other than find you online. What's the next 6 months look like for
Well,
you?
actually, today we're popping by JP Licks.
Oh, you
Yes,
are?
on Newberry. I used to
Good
work there.
move, yeah.
I used to work there, so that's pretty cool.
Oh, very good.
You were the boss, right?
I was the supervisor.
Yeah.
I know.
Really?
Pretty full circle.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're
Wait,
going
you
on tour of
gave
the
up
fall.
ice cream for this?
I know.
Really?
Silly.
Couldn't do it all.
Maybe I'm crawling back now.
And aren't they going to have a special Tiny Habit Sunday?
They are. JP Licks
have
on
to go.
Newberry. 1:30?
Yeah, 1:30.
That's great.
1:30.
Oh my God. Okay. Are you going to perform there?
A little
couple
song.
songs.
But we're going on tour
Yeah,
in the
we're going on
fall.
tour in the
You better
fall.
get
November,
over
right?
there.
You're going
November
to-
November 20th, we're playing
House
House
of
of Blues
Blues.
in Boston.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
Boston.
We got to get to that.
That's fabulous. Can I say you three are too humble about? I mean, you're huge. I mean, you are really a big deal, and you deserve to be when we first met you. But you're far too humble.
So what are we going to hear? We're going to hear something else now.
What are you doing this time?
Yeah,
It's
we're
from the
gonna
new
play-
album, right?
Yes, a new song from the new album.
We're going to play this song that we just released called Anything He Was.
Anything he was.
It's featuring Matty Healy
Featuring
from the
Matty Healy.
1975.
Oh,
But
great.
he's not with us today.
We noticed he wasn't there today.
We're missing him, so it'll just be us.
And you're lucky I'm not going to sing his
Featuring Roger Brown.
All right.
Let's do it.
Here we go. Practice run, you're saving up speed for the real thing. Buckle tight in the backseat of a long ride to healing. Dried up blue, he's still on you and you're breathing on me. Honest truth, it feels a little better leaving. I know I can't be anything he was to you, but I'll try to, nothing like he was, but I know what he meant to you. I'll try to live up to him, memories proving you were happier doing
anything we like to do. When he was next to you, I'll try to. Filling shoes and clinging on to you while you're sleeping. You sobered up and had enough of chasing your feelings. Waking to an empty room after dreaming of you. Honest truth, I don't know what it really is you needed. Try to, nothing like he was. I know what he meant to you. I'll try to live up to him. Memories proving you were happier doing anything we like to do. When he was next to you, I'll try to. You're the closest thing to anything, and I know you don't mean to be rude by not promising anything. There's just nothing more you wanna do. I'm just wrestling because I think in my mind you're not number two. But it's nice to be anything at all. I know I can't be anything you was to you, but I'll try to, nothing like he was, but I know what he meant to you. I'll try to live up to him. Memories proving you were happier doing anything we like to do. He was next to you. I'll try to.
That was Tiny Habits. Judah Mioa, Maya Ray, Sinya Khan, thank you so much for being here. You're going to be at House of Blues in Boston, November 20th?
Yes.
Okay.
And JP Licks today. Come on.
At 1:30. Their new album is Keepers. Tiny Habits featured on Salt Lick Incubator's Songs of Us series, and you can find their interviews and musical performances, again, on YouTube by searching Salt Lick Sessions, tinyhabitsofficial.com for more information on Tiny Habits. That's again, tinyhabitsofficial.com. Thank you so much.
Roger Brown, you're not so
Roger
bad
Brown.
either. Good to see you as well. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Roger is the founder of this whole shebang here, Salt Lick Incubator. Thank you so much for coming in.
Well, we're so proud of these guys, as you can tell. They're just
you should be. They're
amazing.
Really great.
That was
Thanks so much,
great.
you guys.
I just can't tell you how much you cheered me up on this very. Most days are distressing, actually.
They're horrible. Every day's horrible.
Okay, Liza Levy is also Salt Lake president. Roger Brown is the founder. Thank you again.
Good to see
Coming
you.
up after this quick break, the push to update Massachusetts abortion protections. We're going to speak with the head of the advocacy group Reproductive Equity Now and a physician who says some Massachusetts women are still being blocked from receiving in-state care, forced to go out of state to get the care that they need. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Today on the Curiosity Desk, well, there are a lot of ways to look back and trace our long cultural story. The books we wrote, the maps we made, the people we celebrated, but also the buttons we wore. Really? Yes, really. ButtonCon kicks off this week in New Hampshire. We get a preview. That's the Curiosity Desk, today at 1 on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Commonwealth Shakespeare Company, presenting A Midsummer Night's Dream. This summer's free Shakespeare on the Boston Common. Shakespeare's classic comedy is transported to a neon-lit festival escape, July 22nd through August 9th. comshakes.org. And Heights Crossing, an assisted living and memory support community offering residents experiences aimed at promoting independence, inspiring curiosity, and encouraging connection with others. More at heightscrossing.com.
Welcome back to BPR and 89.7 GBH. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Tomorrow, Ken Casey from the Dropkick Murphys will zoom in from their European tour. He's not just going to talk about the tour there. He also, before he went to Europe with the Dropkicks, visited an ICE detention facility in New Jersey right before he played with Springsteen. He'll describe that too. And Wednesday, Governor Healy joins us for an hour in person at the library from 11 to 12. A new piece of legislation is working its way through Beacon Hill, an update to Massachusetts abortion rules, potentially making this one of the strongest sets of laws, particularly in this case for after 24 weeks of pregnancy. For it to pass, by the way, as you hear this discussion, this session, the Senate needs to act by this Friday. That's correct, right? By this Friday. Joined now by Claire Teylouni. She's the co-interim executive director of Reproductive Equity Now, and Dr. Chloe Zera, chair of the Massachusetts chapter of the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. Great to see you both. Thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it.
So, Claire, let's start with you. What is the law now in Massachusetts about abortions post 24 weeks?
Sure. So, Massachusetts law allows for abortion care after 24 weeks in 4 specific categories of exception, essentially, to the law. It allows for care to preserve the life of the patient, to preserve their physical or mental health in cases of lethal fetal anomalies, and in cases of grave fetal diagnosis. And there's been a lot of progress to expand care to get us to where we are today. I think that's really important to note. Those last 2 categories of care were added respectively in 2020 when the legislature codified the right to abortion care into our state law, and then they came back in the wake of Dobbs and added an additional category in 2022.
Dobbs was obviously the repeal of Roe.
So, Doctor, you're an obstetrician gynecologist. That sounds like it's comprehensive, but it's not.
It's not. I'm actually a maternal fetal medicine subspecialist within OBGYN. So I specialize in taking care of people with the highest risk pregnancies. And again, so grateful that the legislature expanded access to people with really devastating fetal diagnoses later in pregnancy. That's a big part of my practice, is sort of doing fetal ultrasound and walking people through that when it happens. But what we know is, like, really any exceptions framework doesn't fully take into account the myriad number of things that can come up. Like, there's always something new that isn't quite captured in the legislation. And, like, we're doctors, we're not lawyers. And I think when we're in the position of having to decide, does this adhere to the law or not, invariably we're leaving people out.
Well,
I'm sorry, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about pregnancy in general. I mean, now they have more sophisticated tests. You get it at 10 weeks, and I think a lot of women and dads or sigh of relief, things look pretty good. Then you get past your first trimester, mostly you figure you're not going to have a miscarriage. Then you kind of think it's clear sailing, but it's not. So what kind of things do you see late in pregnancy?
Yeah, so, one of the routine scans is the anatomy ultrasound, which is typically done around 20 weeks. If things are found even on that ultrasound, which would be earlier than this 24-week exception, sometimes we're doing more advanced imaging. We get MRIs of the fetus sometimes. We do genetic testing, which is every week there's some sort of new advance in genetic testing. But a lot of it is really gray. And there are a lot of parts that are still developing. particularly the brain, I would say, is the thing that we really just can't see a lot until later in pregnancy. And so that's one that is obviously an incredibly important...
That's one of the stories. Is a woman whose baby's brain was not developing.
Yeah.
So
before we get to the stories, I want to be clear because we haven't said it clear. The bill before the legislature, you want people to support, again, that the Senate needs to act on by Friday so that it goes to a conference committee. And the 5-month vacation we always ridicule them for. If a bill is before a conference committee by the end of Friday, they can continue to work on it in normal fashion. So Friday's the critical date. What would the measure that you're supporting do? How would it change the law?
So the legislation we've been prioritizing is called an act prioritizing patient access to care. And instead of those 4 categories of exceptions that I just walked through for care after 24 weeks, it would eliminate that exceptions-based framework and allow for care to be provided based on a physician's professional judgment.
Like on almost every other thing that you do when you see a doctor, except this,
Exactly.
of course.
Exactly.
So before you give examples, some of the horrible stories, doctor, when you said I'm a doctor, not a lawyer, I assume the reason you said that is because when you have language like what's in law, lethal fetal anomaly or grave fetal diagnosis, obviously you're not a lawyer, as you say. So what does that mean? Or is everybody at risk? So in some cases, people, and you're nodding in agreement, end up having to leave Massachusetts to get an abortion, right?
Yeah, and I think, again, I'm sort of fortunate to practice in Boston in a big academic center and always have been surrounded by access to all of these technologies. There's people that don't have access to all of this, so are getting diagnoses later in pregnancy and have to leave, maybe aren't even getting offered the chance to leave.
Can you tell us a story or two about people who've had to leave Massachusetts, which I think, and most of our listeners probably think this is the place and the safest place to go. And in many ways it is, but in other ways it's not. Can you share a story or two?
Yeah, I mean, I think a very common story is finding a devastating brain diagnosis later in pregnancy. So somebody, I've had patients come in for a routine ultrasound to see the growth and estimate the size of the fetus at 32 weeks, say. And there we notice that all of a sudden there's fluid replacing much of the brain. And what that means is often a whole spectrum of possibilities. And I think what people don't necessarily appreciate about medicine in general is how much is gray. Like, we're trained to sort of walk people through the gray areas and say there's this range of possibilities. But if you're asking us to sort of commit to, well, is it grave? Is it serious enough? Is it lethal? Those are really hard distinctions for us to make.
So how do you have that conversation with the patient? What is that like, and what do you say to them?
I would say that it's not one visit. This is multiple visits and multiple conversations over time. Like, we develop relationships with our patients. I consider it an incredible privilege to have the opportunity to walk with people through these decisions, honestly, which are all different and individual. And figuring out what the goals are for a person, for their family, what supports they have, and what we do know and what we don't know often takes several weeks.
What's it like to say to the woman sitting in front of you, I can't provide the help you want and need, and you've got to go somewhere else to do that?
At great expense.
At great expense,
exactly.
Yeah. Pretty devastating, to be honest. It's not about me, but
No.
I will say it's really challenging. And I have sat in front of people within the last year saying, what do you mean we're in Massachusetts? And the reality is, if there is uncertainty about, many aspects of the diagnosis, it can be really challenging to feel like we can provide people care later.
That's the voice of Dr. Chloe Zera, and she's joined by Claire Teylouni. Claire is from the Reproductive Equity Now. And Dr. Zera is the chair of the Massachusetts chapter of the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists.
You know what drives me crazy? You hear this from the anti-abortion side. Well, they just want to have abortion up to the day before delivery, which is just insane. I mean, no one is having an abortion the day before delivery unless there's even if there's some catastrophic thing, as you're saying, you would find it out before the end of the 10th month, because this really goes 10th month, the whole thing. But this has to be considered by the physician and the family, and this is not just, we're going to do this kind of thing, even when you do go out of state. So what happens to people when they go out of state?
Well, I think what happens is first they process, then they start looking for funds because often they're looking for childcare and they're looking for transportation and the cost of the procedure itself. And they're grappling with the sense of abandonment. What do you mean my team that I've been developing this conversation with over the last several weeks is no longer going to be the team taking care of me?
You mentioned the cost of the procedure, so insurance may be not covering this?
If you're leaving Massachusetts for care, you're most likely leaving your provider network, which
so
means you're paying out of pocket.
And what kind of money are we talking about? Thousands, I would think.
I think it's in the range of like $20,000 to $30,000.
Tens of thousands of dollars.
And travel and housing
Exactly.
and
Accommodations,
childcare, as you said.
childcare, missing work.
So this is Monday. You probably knew that without my telling you. Friday is whatever number of days away. What is the sense of the Senate's position on this thing?
Well, I'll just start by saying we're thrilled the House took this up last week. I think that's huge progress.
Overwhelming vote, like
exactly.
1-0 something to
119
33.
to 33, exactly. And we've been having really productive conversations in the Senate. We feel very optimistic. We have a tremendous amount of champions in the Senate on reproductive freedom that we're excited to keep having conversations with.
And you should just call your own senator, I assume. Is that the bottom line?
Exactly.
Are there other states that have provisions comparable to this? Or
There are, yes. This legislation specifically is actually based and modeled after legislation that was passed in Maine in 2023. So Massachusetts would be following suit of what Maine did just a few years ago. The statutes that allow for care later in pregnancy vary a little bit, but we would be joining about 9 other states and Washington, D.C. in allowing for care later in pregnancy based on patient needs and specific patient care.
Has Governor Healy said where she is on this bill?
You'd have to ask the governor.
We're
I can't speak
ask
for her.
on Wednesday.
What I will say is, there's a reason Reproductive Equity Now endorsed Governor Healy for re-election. She's been a tremendous champion on reproductive health care policy.
Just to get back to you, doctor, for a second. I mean, by the time you're at 32 weeks of pregnancy, you probably got the nursery ready to go, and there's other siblings. The little siblings know that their mommy's got a baby in her belly and all that. I mean, you probably are in for some long psychological help here too, I would think.
I mean, again, comprehensive medical care, right? So what we want to provide our patients is the opportunity to get all of the care that they need from their team.
Yeah.
And right now, we can provide all of it. We have the technical know-how to provide all of the care, including abortion care that folks might need later in pregnancy. And that is the one piece we can't deliver in Massachusetts.
Good luck. We're glad you brought us up to speed. Again, call your state senator immediately because the clock is ticking to Friday. And after Friday, again, if there was not unanimous consent, which there would not be, it would have to wait till next year. So Friday's the key date or before.
That's right.
617-722-2000. You can
That's
also
correct.
email them, but if you call that number, even if you don't know who your state rep or state senator is, the operator will get you through to them. Thank you
Thanks
very
to you
much.
both.
Thank
you so much.
Good luck.
Thank you.
We've been speaking with Claire Teylouni, co-interim executive director of Reproductive Equity Now, and Dr. Chloe Zera, chair of the Massachusetts chapter of the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. Thank you both very much for coming in. Okay. We're going to change subjects now. Jim has just shaved his head.
I have, just this weekend.
Ladies,
that is correct.
you can see, he's just shaved
that
his
is
head.
correct.
We're all in a state of shock here. But, he's. We're going to take calls because we have a picture of Jim next to Mr. Clean.
We do.
And we're going to open the lines on what the listeners think about Jim's bald
Well,
head.
no, excuse me. It's not just about Jim's bald head. It's about bald heads in general, on men. What do you think about Ayanna Presley? Does she look fabulous, by the way?
She does, but she's not you, Jim.
That is correct. That is a very good
What
point.
do people think of shaved heads on men or on women? But mostly we're going to talk about, let's face it, Jim's head. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
25 years ago, a summer blockbuster gave us a nightmare in liquid metal, a machine that could become anyone and survive almost anything. But standing in its way, Sarah Connor, her son John, and a robot bodyguard with a killer one-liner.
Hasta la vista, baby.
I'm Jared Bowen. For our next watch party, we're revisiting Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Watch with us and call in to tell us how this blockbuster resonates now. That's on The Culture Show, Wednesday at 2 on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Morningside Music Bridge, returning to Boston. The summer program shines a spotlight on young classical musicians from around the world, with concerts now through August 7th at New England Conservatory, mmb.international. And Boston Children's Museum. Their new exhibit, Dream It, Build It, works to empower children to dream up, design, and build things that make our world a better place. More about the exhibit at bostonchildrensmuseum.org.
Okay, here we go. Welcome back to BPR on 89.7 GBH. Marjorie and Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're at the library tomorrow, zooming in from their European tour. Will be the lead guy in the Dropkick Murphys, Ken Casey. Wednesday, the governor will be with us from 11 to 12. So if you're watching us on YouTube today, or you've heard Marjorie's snide remarks, you know that I have shaved my head. I've wanted to do it for about 30 years. I finally had the courage with my good friend Alfred, who's been cutting my hair for decades. And today, this weekend, he shaved it off. Marjorie's comment, I wrote it down this morning, was, well, if you're happy. That was, Corby didn't like it either. Nobody said a good word. Well, John, it's because you have a bald head. John you have a fabulous shaved head.
Shaved head, which looks great.
He said it looked awesome. But
it does look awesome.
Okay, so here's the deal. In order to do all this sort of stuff, I had to order a lot of stuff. I had to order a multi-headed razor specifically for bald heads. That came last night. Bottles of sunblock, Marjorie.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Some weird BALM, bomb. Like bomb, not BOMB.
A bald bomb.
You put it on your head kind of thing. And we decided, they decided, in an act of, I would say if I decided, it was a little masochism, that we would invite your comments on my newly shaved head. And by the way, despite how Marjorie cast this, the goal is not just for you to comment on me, even though that's what she would like. There is The Rock. Have you ever seen Mr. Clean, by the way?
Yes.
I don't think he's real. I think he's a whatever. Yeah, that guy, exactly.
There you go. And there's your picture. There you are.
Can you tell which one is me?
I can tell which one is you.
Okay, and of course there is Michael Jordan, who a lot of people think I look exactly like
you do.
now. We want to know what you think about people with shaved heads. I don't like the bald head thing. Shaved heads.
Shaved head.
And I can handle it. 877-301-8970. I'm told there are a few texts. Is that correct?
There are a few texts, but I have a question first.
Sure.
I was reading about something called telogen effluviation.
Yes.
Effluvian.
Exactly.
Is that what you have?
That's why I shaved my head, because I have telogen effluviation. I have no idea. What is it? I don't even know what it is.
One of the reasons that men lose their hair. Telogen effluvian.
Now, here's an anonymous texter. This is actually what I was hoping for. Marjorie, I just joined in on YouTube, and I cannot believe you have Sean Connery filling in for Jim.
That's just absolutely incredible.
Okay, it's not.
We have a lot of text here.
Go ahead.
Suzanne, she's watching on YouTube. She says, Jim looks great. He can pull it off. Okay. And then Mary, watching on YouTube, says, I can't remember what Jim looked like with hair.
It was a long time ago. That's very funny.
Peter and Mystic, I like the bald head, but it needs some neck tattoos to complete the look.
Actually, I'm getting them tomorrow afternoon, so that'll be totally fine.
I mean, most of the people think, listen to this. HD Guy 350 watching on YouTube. You haven't lived until you've driven a convertible while feeling the wind blowing on your scalp. So there you go, Jim.
How come you were not? You're one of the kindest people I've ever known. The fact that the best you come up with is, well, if you're happy. I mean,
I'm not a stylist, but I thought you looked. You're a handsome guy.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. I thought
ruggedly handsome.
Ruggedly handsome. Exactly. I thought with a little beard, and the tufts of hair, you look good.
Well, the tufts of hair is not exactly a compliment, Jim. I really like the beard and those little tufts of hair. That is not what someone says. To be kind.
It wasn't tufts of hair. You had quite a bit of hair. Your hairline was receding, but you had quite a bit of hair in the back, and I sort of thought it looked good.
Can I tell you, if you had been creative as the second anonymous texter, can you read that second anonymous text? You're the big environmentalist. Read this text.
Oh, Jim, with all that new real estate on your head, you should consider installing small all solar panels. I bet you could charge your Tesla.
Why are you laughing at that?
Not talking about this.
Well, actually, we are, and I am thinking of doing that.
Look at people. People are loving this, Jim. Lisa from Hollister, California. People in California know a lot of these things. Oh, there's that.
Why don't you read it instead of just?
Jim looks absolutely fabulous.
Thank
we
you.
loved his shaved head. Who's that really handsome surfer? That guy. What's his name?
I never heard him. Slater or somebody. He looks
Slater
really
Kelly
good.
or something Kelly. He's a really handsome surfer. He's bald.
The only white guy I can think of who looks fabulous in a shave. Stanley Tucci looks pretty good.
Stanley
don't you think?
Tucci looks good. Yeah, he looks very
John
good.
Malkovich
Patrick
looks
Stewart.
okay.
Patrick Stewart.
That's not
you don't think so?
No.
You don't think so? Michael Jordan. Everybody kind of agrees on that. And The Rock. Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah, he looks pretty good.
He looks pretty good.
Yeah. Okay, let's
Anyway,
take some calls.
877-301-8970. What do you think, Joe in Gloucester?
Hello, Joe. Be kind. Go ahead.
Hey, how's it going?
Excellent.
I lost my hair when I was 21, okay?
Oh.
So, and it's not a fun look when you're trying to go up to girls and say, hey, what's your major? And you're thinning, right?
Yeah.
So, let me tell you, when I shaved it off, my confidence just increased because I owned it. When you're clinging to scraps, you are not owning it, okay? But I get it because my dad, who is a boomer, used to freak out at me about it because his notion of a bald person was like Donald Pleasant, right? Whereas now we got heroes who are bald guys. So keep owning it, Jim. You look great.
Boy, Joe, that was a fabulous
That was a great
start.
call.
Thank you.
Well, an awful lot of guys.
I own it.
An awful lot of guys in the NBA who are young.
Yeah,
in
but
their
they have
20s.
bodies underneath.
I
I'm
know.
not exactly.
Yeah, but
you
they
know
look
what I
pretty
mean?
good. Pretty good with their bald head. Although some people don't think
Shaved
it's so
head.
great.
I prefer shaved head. Thank
Beaver
you.
from Forge Village wants to know if Marjorie's working with Dr. Evil today.
That's so funny. That made me
Amina
laugh.
says, Mr. Clean, Jim, you just need a gold hoop earring like Mr. Clean.
Mr. Clean's pretty good looking. I'm
Mr.
Jim
Clean.
Browdy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't we love the Mr. Clean sponges?
That's like the worst
What do you call those
photograph
sponges?
ever.
The Mr. Clean sponges.
They are the greatest.
They get everything off.
These cheap
Paint.
white sponges.
Yeah,
you
I
just
love those.
wipe them up against the
Yeah,
whatever.
You need warm water.
Yeah.
Shine
Dick
on.
Cheney have a bald head?
Dick Cheney had a bald
He had a
head.
bald head, yeah.
Shine on, sexy Jimmy, says Chris from Boston.
Okay, fine.
Okay. Gary in Wisconsin.
Hello,
what do you think,
Gary. What do you think?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I'm all about the buzz cut.
Mm-hmm.
My wife does it right in our garage about 3 times a year.
Yeah.
Usually on a number 1. She does my nose, my ears, almost all my orifices. And last week she did it on a 5, only because I'm flying to Boston next week and I didn't want to look too freakish.
Well, wait a second. Are you suggesting by shaving my head I would look freakish? Is that where you're going with that?
No.
Okay.
No, I have a number 1 usually, and it's pretty short. And when I'm in the bathroom in the morning, I automatically go for my brush and I do a Fonzie. You know?
Well, can I tell you, that is an interesting point. Gary, thanks for the call. Remember when I used to go with Charlie Baker, we'd go out to Granite Telecommunications, and their incredibly generous CEO and founder would pay anybody who make a significant contribution for cancer research in memory of one of his parents, his father, I believe, as a result of it. And one of the things that Governor Baker said to me is and we'd have our head not shaved, but really short, like a 1 or something. He'd say, you're going to love it. When you get in the shower, it takes like 2 seconds. Multiply that by 1,000. And you get in the shower to wash your head when you've shaved. You know how great that is?
Yeah, you don't really
By the way,
do
we
much
tried.
washing.
Governor Baker asked you to join us one year, and you didn't have the courage to do it.
No, I'm not courageous.
You think
enough.
Ayanna Presley looks good?
Ayanna Presley looks great.
She looks fabulous.
But she has a beautiful shaped head.
Well, how do you know what your head looks like?
It's
I didn't know what
bad.
my head
No,
looked
it's
like.
bad.
What do you think of the shape of my head?
I think I have a cone head.
What do you think of the shape of my head?
It's lovely.
No, she doesn't. She doesn't mean
It is. And you've got some freckles on the top of your head already.
See them right
yeah,
there?
you've already got some freckles right there.
Thank you. I appreciate
Jim is
that.
now a steely-eyed missile man, says Ted from Marshfield.
Mm.
So you think that? What do you think, Jim?
Now, let me just explain something to you. Every time we've ever fallen for one of these things, we regret it. We're going to do it anyway because the staff says, this is what I'm talking about. We have exclusive sound of Donald Trump talking about Jim's new haircut. Here's Trump.
And I called him Watermelon Head because he has the largest head I've ever seen with the smallest neck, pencil neck.
Well, actually, he was talking about Adam Schiff. That, in this case, it's borderline watermelon head. Wouldn't you say that? Okay,
no,
yourself.
your head.
I have a large head.
No, but it looks. You're a big person, so it fits in.
You know what's incredible? Because Marjorie is so nice, she's trying to figure out what's the least horrible thing she can say, and she goes, "You have a big head, but you're a large person."
That's right.
That is so kind. That is such a beautiful compliment that I have a large head because I'm a big person.
People want to know how you feel about this, Jim.
Can I tell you something? I'm so glad you asked. I had great trepidation. I am not exaggerating. Marjorie has known me for much of the last 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
For 30 years, I've wanted to do this. I've chickened out. And my attitude was, have it in late July or early August so that if you hate it, it grows back by September, or by Labor Day. And other than the fact that you've totally broken my confidence, if I excluded you from the conversation, can you put this picture up on the YouTube stream?
The beluga whale.
They think I look like that, by the way.
For a GBH fundraising
So
idea,
the answer is
$12 a month or $150 all at once. You get to pet Jim's melon like a beluga whale.
It does look a little, but the answer is my confidence was much stronger than I thought it would be until you came along.
I'm sorry. I think it looks great.
No, you don't. You don't think it looks great.
Well,
That's making it worse. Exactly.
I do.
Susie and
Chris
Suze,
from Boston
or whatever
says,
it is.
"Shine on, sexy Jimmy." So there you go.
Yeah, I'm putting that
the
bomb on
textures
this
are all
afternoon.
with you, Jim.
Susie in Bellingham, what's up? I mean, hello there. What are you going to say? Hi.
Hi, guys. How you doing today?
We're good.
I'm laughing too much from Watermelon Head.
Watermelon
Marjorie's
Head, yeah.
comment.
That's
Well,
nice,
if you like it.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
Anyways, I'm a hairdresser. So first of all, your hair would only grow back about an inch if you shaved it, like, in June to early July by September. So, anyways, that being said, what I called about was nobody has mentioned Bruce Willis.
Oh, yeah, Bruce
Oh,
Willis.
Bruce Willis. That's a great one. You're right. Yeah.
Now, wait, don't go away. Since you're a hairdresser, when I went in to see Alfred, who again has been my friend, Alfred Mazzarelli, works at Corby Spa, used to own his own place in Harvard Square. He's fabulous. I asked his opinion before I did it, and he said, let's give it a go. And it was he that instilled confidence. What would you have said to me if I came to you to do this? What advice would you give?
I probably would have agreed with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got a good look. You've got a good shaped head from what I can tell.
From what you can tell, yeah.
You've got a good look for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate
I've talked men into, instead of the comb over, like just combing it straight back.
Oh, can I tell you, I'm so glad you brought that up.
The
Thank you
comb over
for that.
It's terrible, isn't it?
There is nothing that is quite. By the way, let's just be clear. I never had a comb over. I just had, as you say, would you say patches?
Tufts.
Do you realize how demeaning that is to say? You look great with the little beard, which is demeaning to begin with your little beard and the tufts of hair. Oh, thank you, Marjorie.
Kind of like a Q-tip.
Thank you. Oh, that's real. Oh, that is so nice. Really, it's so.
No. I didn't mean
that. Can we
that.
get Edgar in here? I have a feeling
Tufts.
Edgar is going to be a little more diplomatic.
A lot of people think, wow, you look younger. Keep it, says Karen in Braintree.
Thank you, Karen. Braintree.
Somebody else thinks some testosterone injections might help with this
I
particular.
had them yesterday. I had the shaved head on Saturday, the testosterone on Sunday.
Yeah, but most of the
I feel
Texans
menacing today.
think you look great.
Okay. Now,
matching with Mr. Potato Head with the no hair and the smooth
see, that's
surface.
something you would say, actually.
It's just Potato Head, not Mr. Potato Head,
That's
you'll
right.
recall.
So you could be honest, because Marjorie has already
name.
brutalized me at the beginning of the day. So what do you think?
I was just saying to Jamie, the thing is, you're actually lucky because no, I'm dead serious.
Okay.
You have
good shape.
It's a great shaped head.
That's right.
There are a lot of people who lose their hair, and then if they go for the shave look, their head is kind of bumpy, or it's lumpy, or it's a weird shape.
Well, I don't know. Are there any bumps in the back?
No, I mean, this is what I'm saying. I know exactly what your skull is going to look
You're
like.
a man of the world, sort of.
Sometimes, sort of.
If someone said to you, please don't interrupt this because I don't want him to know the source of this. If someone said to you, hey, Edgar, I love the little beard and the tufts of hair you have on your head. Well, a friend of mine, a former friend, said that to me, allegedly as a compliment. Would you consider that to be a compliment?
Would I consider? No, I would consider that to be slightly demeaning, except for if it came from somebody who I know is kind and loving, like Marjorie Egan.
That's right.
Now,
that's
Cameron
right.
from Marjorie texts and says, Don't put the bald head on the billboard on the turnpike. It will blind the drivers. Okay,
Do you do anything to keep it less shiny?
I just did it Saturday, and I ordered the crap in the mail. It's coming.
But is that supposed to make it less shiny? Do you do anything to keep the shine off?
Oh,
of
you have
it?
to get powder like women have for their
like
nose.
some sort of like a little bit of powder.
I'm actually
going to
shine this baby up. That's my goal. Shine this baby
like a bowling
up.
ball.
Okay, so what are you doing on the show?
Well,
I'd do this if I were you.
I don't know.
That's your
I don't
business.
know if you read in the Globe. There was a great piece in the Globe recently about the ballot questions here in Massachusetts. You know who wrote that, Jim?
It was brilliant. Who wrote it, Marjorie?
The man with the little tufts of hair.
Okay, that's
and the little beard. Well, no,
Yes.
I mean you obviously did a column talking about the point that there's a ton of ballot questions
9.
on. Yeah. So we're doing a piece in very Curiosity Desk fashion. We're asking, when you have that many ballot questions, how do you decide the order they are placed in, and does it matter whether you're question 1 or question 4
Brilliant.
or question 9?
Brilliant.
Fabulous.
So
you
we're
ever
on
had
it.
shaved head people on the show today, or no?
No, Jim, we do not allow shaved people on the
Okay,
Curiosity Desk.
Okay, Edgar's got a lot of hair. You have very lot. You're not going to lose your hair. You got a
Hopefully
lot of
not.
hair
I
there.
used to have tufts of
wanna
hair.
look
I
like
don't know if you're
Jim.
aware of that. Tufts and little tiny beard. Oh, I love you, the tiny beard and the tufts of hair. I love that. Jesus Christ. You are pathetic.
Sponsored by Tufts University.
That's right. Okay, we're going to be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow. We're going to have Ken Casey is calling in from the Dropkick Murphys. He's going to tell us about visiting his Bupropion tour and visiting a ICE detention center. CNN's John King, the New York Times TV critic James Ponowasic.
He's actually a great writer. He's great.
He is. We're going to talk about TV, obviously, with him.
Oh, really?
Our crew, yes, that's true.
Okay.
Our crew is Zoe Matthews, Hannah Loss, Ariana Gonzalez. Our stream team, Bill Francis and Maddie Guy. Our engineer is John the Claw Parker, another man with a beautiful shaved
By
head.
the way, we are selling
has
tufts
no
of my hair for
moves.
$12.50 a month, $150 all at once.
And Jane
during
Bologna.
Pledge Week coming up.
The Curiosity Desk with Edgar B. Hurt III
Did you
starts
say
right after
Bologna?
us. Bologna.
Oh, Bologna.
I think I
okay.
said Bologna.
Okay, whatever.
And the Culture Show with Jared Bowen starts at 2. He's going to speak with author Carrie Mara on her new novel, Summer of Love. Jim Brady, you look great.
She doesn't mean it, but that's okay. She's a fairly nice person anyway. See you at the library tomorrow. Goodbye.
Because he has the largest head I've ever seen with the smallest neck, pencil neck.
From the stories of centuries past to discoveries that will define our future, How Did We Get Here's, how-tos, and more. Journey with us down the rabbit hole on the Curiosity Desk. Coming up next on GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Modern Pest Services, providing integrated pest management for Boston homes and businesses. Modern Pest uses a prevention-first approach to seasonal pests to help target the source of the problem. Learn more at modernpest.com. And MIT Sloan Executive Education, fueled by cutting-edge research and aided by the latest technology, professionals can choose from more than 90 in-person and online courses offered throughout the year. executive.mit.edu.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Today on the Curiosity Desk, the expansion of public records laws, repealing legalized marijuana. Those are among the issues up to you to decide this November. State Secretary's office just released its official list of ballot questions voters will consider, a whopping 9 of them. Our question, when you got so many ballot measures on the table, how does the state choose what order they come in? And does a campaign cringe when it sees it is question number 9?
Number 9.
Then one man's casual look through his own family lineage uncovers an astounding legacy in this country of how poor children supported their families in 18th century America. And we put a pin on our Monday with a conversation about, what else? Buttons. As ButtonCon kicks off in Manchester, what are us non-enthusiasts missing out on? Find out this hour on the Curiosity Desk.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump is headed to Michigan today for an event on the economy. The visit comes with fewer than 100 days left until the congressional midterm elections. NPR's Mara Liasson reports on where things stand for Democrats and Republicans.
To win a majority in the House of Representatives, Democrats need a net pickup of 3 seats. To win a majority in the Senate, Democrats need a net pickup of 4 seats. Republicans are facing strong headwinds. President Trump's approval rating is under 40%. Voters are sour on the economy, and they blame the Iran war and Trump's tariffs for keeping prices high at the pump and the grocery store. But Republicans have some structural advantages, too. They've raised much more money than Democrats. Democrats have the advantage of enthusiasm. Democratic voters have been turning out in larger numbers than Republicans in primaries and special elections this year. Mara Liasson, NPR News.
The U.S. military has paused airstrikes against Iran as both sides try to negotiate an end to nearly 5 months of hostilities. Suzanne Maloney, an Iran expert with Brookings Institution, a nonprofit think tank in Washington, D.C., responds to whether this pause in fighting might be able to accomplish what previous pauses could not.
The president and his administration here in Washington seem to have rightly decided that there was no military value to continuing additional airstrikes on Iran. The president had been threatening to strike civilian targets. That was likely to lead to an escalation, not just by Iran, but by the Houthis, who have sought to target traffic in the Red Sea, the Bab el-Mandeb, as well as Saudi oil infrastructure.
The 4 American service members most recently killed during renewed fighting between the U.S. and Iran are no longer listed as part of the Iran war death toll, according to the Associated Press. Their names, as well as dozens believed to be wounded during the conflict, have been shifted to a new category called Overseas Operations. It's been added to the Defense Casualty Analysis System's website. More than 1 million acres of mostly rangeland has now burned in Oregon. NPR's Kirk Sigler reports more than 24 fires are stretching resources and causing thousands of people to evacuate.
The wildfires have closed highways across central and eastern Oregon, including stretches of Interstate 84 that links Boise, Idaho to Portland, Oregon. Most are burning in remote federal rangeland and on private ranches and are causing major headaches for ranchers who are having to move cattle away from the flames with sometimes no warning. Oregon is coming off its driest and warmest winter on record with very little snowpack and now extremely dry fuels, including invasive grasses. The governor has declared states of emergency in multiple counties, and the state is now considered the top federal firefighting priority in the country. Kirk Sigler, NPR News, Boise.
You're listening to NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. There's been a lot of shark activity on the Cape and Islands waters this month. The Atlantic White Shark Conservancy has noted at least a dozen documented sightings and 17 instances of acoustic detections. A couple of kids in a boat off Monomoy Island on Saturday had a first-hand sighting when a shark hatched on to a striped bass that they were reeling in.
Holy cow.
You got him? Yeah. Doesn't want to let it go. Oh, wow.
That video from Boston Channel 5, the captain of the boat said the shark hung around for a while after eating the kids' fish. Meanwhile, the sharks aren't the only dangers this year. We've also been reporting that one of the planet's largest species of jellyfish, the lion's mane jellyfish, have been making unwelcome appearances on Massachusetts beaches. Popular Science magazine says lion mane's bells, the big round part, can be about 3 feet across, and their tentacles can be twice the size of a city bus, or over 100 feet long. While there have been extremely few human fatalities from lion's mane stings, they can be very toxic and they hurt like the dickens. Magazine says for some reason Massachusetts waters have recently been seeing surprisingly many of them, and jellyfish don't swim, they drift. So if you see one in the water or washed ashore, it's best to keep your distance. That said, jellyfish never get lost. Why? Because they go with the flow. 81 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Schwab, where investors have a range of choices to pursue investing goals, from self-directed investing to full-service wealth management, all in one place. More at schwab.com. This is NPR.
Welcome to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We're streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Well, come November, Massachusetts voters will face 9 statewide ballot questions, tying a record last seen 32 years ago. But before any of those questions are voted on, somebody has to decide what order they will appear in. It's a decision that shapes how campaigns promote their message and how voters navigate the ballot. The official order for this year's ballot questions was released last week, and that got us wondering, who decides? Who decides how the questions are ranked? What is driving their thinking when they do it? And does something as seemingly inconsequential as the order of questions influence how voters make their selection? Joining us to explain is Chris Liniski, a senior reporter at Commonwealth Beacon, whose work for years has included no shortage of coverage of the inner workings of Beacon Hill. Chris, welcome to the Curiosity Desk.
I am so happy to be here.
We are so happy to have you. So how is it decided? Who decides? How do they decide what's the order?
Is it just random? It's not random, actually. That is what I thought when I set out to report this. But in fact, it comes all down to personal decision-making by the Secretary of State himself.
Oh.
Bill Galvin, who's held the job for decades, he designs the order of ballot questions really with an eye toward traditional layout questions that someone who's worked in newspapers or magazines might also be weighing. Factors such as, will the entire text of this question fit on one side? Will this split across multiple pages? Trying to avoid that so voters have a clean flow of information. But this time around, it was not Bill Galvin. He had a deputy design the order of questions because he himself is working on one of the ballot questions. And
so he had to recuse himself.
He had to recuse himself, so there's no conflict of interest.
Question 1 was not the question that he was working on.
Exactly.
People like, Bill Galvin, the question you were working on is the first question.
Exactly.
Problem?
Turned out to be question 4 at the decision of one of his deputies.
So he sort of farms this one out, so to speak, because he's involved, but maybe also helpful because, as we know, we've been talking about a lot, 9 ballot questions this year, which is a number we haven't seen in a while. So presumably that makes laying it out a little more difficult than if you have, say, 3 questions or 2 questions.
Absolutely. Galvin told me that this year, essentially every ballot across the state is going to require 2 pages, if not 3 pages, because some communities need to print ballots in multiple languages to comply with federal law. That's the first time in quite a while that's happened in every single community across the state. So when voters get into the booth, they're going to be juggling multiple pages, multiple pieces of paper, and ensuring that an entire question isn't split from one page to the other page is actually a pretty tricky task.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially when you're talking about having 9 questions, and they vary in lengths from very short questions to incredibly long questions.
Absolutely. Some of them are quite dense and quite arcane.
So why, if at all, is the order of questions relevant? I mean, what do we know about the relevancy of the order of questions? Besides, I mean, as you say, it seems like the most important factor is saying, like, can we lay this out in a way that is rational? But does then the order matter for anybody?
Campaigns look to it because it defines what their messaging is for the 4-month period we just kicked off. You'll hear a lot of ads that say, vote yes on question 1, vote no on question 6, so on and so forth.
Right.
And getting that number makes the messaging a lot easier than vote yes on all party primaries, for example. There is a field of social science that has looked into the way ballot order shapes voter attitudes. There's something called the primacy effect, and research has found that for candidates, not for ballot questions, but for candidates, appearing first on the ballot can actually get you an extra point or 2, a small margin but not an insignificant one, if the order of names is not randomized. Not clear if that extends to ballot questions, but I know that that's an effect, and that's a question that I sought to answer for myself.
You're listening to the Curiosity Desk. We're talking with Commonwealth Beacon senior reporter Chris Liniski about the order of the ballot questions, how it's determined here in Massachusetts elections. I mean, you say there's not as much, it sounds like not as much robust science around sort of looking at something like this. But I mean, do you have suspicions or any ideas about like like whether it matters? In particular, like if we look at something like the primacy effect, and again, a situation where you have 9 questions. I mean, are people who are question 7 or question 8 or question 9 at all worried about fatigue? Which is to say, I think we know a lot of voters go to the polls. Sometimes they are, very aware that there are going to be ballot questions and they study up on those. Sometimes they go and they're going to vote and they're like, oh my gosh, there's ballot questions. I haven't even looked at this. I mean, the idea that there's so many, is there worries that if you're 7 or 8 or 9, that people are just going to, by the time they get to you, skip it all together and just move on with their day?
It's a real worry, and opinions are split. Different folks feel differently about it, but there is real worry among veterans who work on a lot of ballot questions about being question 8 or question 9. One veteran I spoke to talked to me, said, if you need a yes vote, if whatever proposal you're pushing hinges on a yes vote, you don't want to be question 9. You don't want to have voters going all the way to the bottom, already exhausted by decisions, and getting to something where you need them to buy in on it.
Yeah, so definitely something that is of concern to some of the folks who have put these things together.
And for example, the information booklet that the secretary has to produce explaining all these ballot questions for voters, this year it's going to be something like 85 pages, if not longer than that, just to accompany all of the information that has to go along here.
So do you, as somebody who's covered this, for years, what are you looking at in terms of this year, which is to say, 9 questions, it's been decades since we had anything even approaching 9 questions. The last number of cycles, it's been 2, 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 at a push. As you're looking at 9 questions coming out, what are you thinking about? What are you looking at? What do you expect to see?
So much of it hinges on the legislature, and so much of the upswell we're seeing this cycle is a direct response to Beacon Hill itself. Campaigns are largely led by folks who have been pushing proposals in the House and the Senate for years and just have failed to get traction, got fed up and say, I'll do it myself. The state constitution gives a path to have voters decide new laws themselves. Let's just use that instead of trying to convince these lawmakers who won't act on it. And that list includes Secretary of State Bill Galvin,
as you
who
mentioned,
has been pushing Election Day voter registration for years, unable to get other Democrats on board, decided to bring it to the voters himself.
Do you have a feeling, kind of understanding the legislature, as you just pointed out, the fact that so many of the questions this year are around issues of the legislature, do you think that depending on what happens in this election, depending on turnout, depending on what kinds of votes they get on these questions, depending on how many people are voting on all of the questions, et cetera, does that stand to change anything in terms of, how the legislature operates and also how the referendums operate?
I think that we are going to see reforms to the referendum process, to the ballot question process in the years ahead. This has been essentially the biggest story of the term on Beacon Hill. Lawmakers are frustrated by what they're seeing. They're frustrated by interest groups and concerned voters taking so much power into their own hands. I don't know what the timeline is on reforms, but there's real appetite to change a lot about the way the process works.
Now, presumably you were not covering the State House in 1918, which is
No, I was not.
Which is when we officially kind of first got this referendum process. Do you want to talk a little bit about 1918? Do you know anything about 1918 and ballot measures?
Only tangentially, that it was part of a bigger push for government reforms. And I think the going argument on Beacon Hill now is maybe we should reform this 108-year-old section of the state constitution to better reflect what campaigns are like today.
So what's interesting, I was doing a little studying up in preparation for this. So 1918 ballot measure, the question 1 was the question, should we have this referendum process? And it passed, but it passed by a very slim margin. But it was not the only question. In fact, they had something like 18 or 19 questions on that ballot. Would you like to know what some of those questions were?
I absolutely would.
So the one that passed the most convincingly passed with 70% of the vote. Let me see if I can find this here. 70% of the vote was a yes vote to allow restrictions on advertising on public ways, in public places, and on private property in public view. So that's kind of interesting. The other one that really caught my eye on this was question 10. This was a yes-no vote, and it passed yes 59 to 41%, and this was, should we allow women to be notaries public? So...
Different time.
Kind of a different time, yeah. So what else should people be thinking about, as we approach Election Day? As I was saying earlier, I think, sometimes people really study up on these questions. They understand that this is a part of the process in statewide ballots here in Massachusetts, and they get ready for it. But there's 9 of them, and a lot of people go to the ballot not knowing they were coming at all. What do you think people ought to be thinking about now? November is coming.
Right. We've got 9 statewide ballot questions, but we also have a lot of important races on the ballot. Governor Maura Healey is up for re-election. She will face a Republican challenger, decided in the primary or perhaps before then, depending on how the consolidation of the ticket goes. So we've got a top of the ticket. We've got 9 questions stretching all the way down to the bottom of the ticket. In between, there's not all that much. More than half of state representatives and state senators don't face any electoral challenge, which has become a pattern in recent years.
Yeah. All right, we've been speaking with Commonwealth Beacon senior reporter Chris Liniski about this year's order of ballot questions and this year's ballot in general. Chris, thanks so much for being with us here.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Coming up, one of our colleagues here at GBH was tracing his family lineage, looking for answers about his fifth great-grandfather, when he stumbled upon a complex, shocking reality of early America. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. You are listening to the Curiosity Desk live on GBH 89.7, and we're streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Don't go anywhere.
I'm Henry Santoro. Today on The Culture Show. Best-selling author Carrie Marr, whose latest novel, Summer of Love, moved between 1967 San Francisco and the present, tracing how freedoms, ambitions, and upheavals of one generation shape the next. Carrie Marr joins Jared Bowen to discuss her book about women remaking their lives and the complicated legacy of an era still wrapped in myth. That and more is on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Cambridge Trust, a division of Eastern Bank, dedicated to helping individuals and businesses pursue their financial goals with a full range of banking and wealth management services. Learn more at cambridgetrust.com. And Heights Crossing, an assisted living and memory support community offering residents experiences aimed at promoting independence, inspiring curiosity, and encouraging connection with others. More at heightscrossing.com.
You are listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We are streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Why don't you join us there if you can? Well, one of our colleagues here at GBH, Matt Welch, was tracing his family tree like a lot of us do. And he's combing through records on Ancestry.com and then some general Google searches. He made it as far as his fifth great-grandfather, a man named Henry Welch, when the path seemed to dry up. In trying to figure out the story of what happened to Henry, Matt ventured down a rabbit hole that would expose him to an astonishing history of indentured servitude in America, and one researcher on her own seemingly dead-end journey forward in time to find the lineage of that same Henry Welch. We are joined now by Matt Welch. He's in the creative department here at GBH. He helped make the logo. Bang up job, Matt. Thank you for that. And Ruth Hearndon, an expert on early American social history and author of the books Children Born to Labor, The Pauper Apprentice System in Early America, and Unwelcome Americans Living on the Margin in Early New England. Matt, Ruth, welcome to the Curiosity Desk.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Hearndon, I want to start with you to kind of level set a little bit and get some sense of just general poverty, so to speak, in colonial America. I mean, most people think of colonial America, they're picturing self-reliant Puritans and farmers making their way. What did poverty look like in the 17th and 18th centuries?
There was a lot of it. We have this image of people doing so well in early America, but the fact is that a lot of the problems from Europe came with the settlers to North America. And a lot of people who came to North America as migrants or immigrants were deeply in poverty. Think of all the slaves who came. Think of all the people who came as indentured servants who couldn't even pay their way across. So a lot of people arrived in a condition of poverty. And the situation in early America was not conducive to, oh, there's your gold mine, go dig it and get rich.
Right.
So there's a lot of adverse circumstances, and the things that cause poverty today cause poverty then. Unemployment, trying to find a job that would actually feed your family, bad harvests, bad weather, epidemic disease, accidents, all of that rendered people very vulnerable. So what's kind of remarkable about early America from my perspective is that every community had things in place, systems in place to take care of poor people. They knew it was a problem. It was written into their laws as soon as they established colonies. That was one of the first laws they established. How do we take care of poor people?
Really? They would establish it in their laws.
Yeah.
And so what were some of the remedies for taking care of poor people in various communities?
The sort of pillar of all the poor relief laws is that everybody belonged somewhere, that they had what we would call a hometown. Obviously, that wasn't true. When you think of all the people coming from Europe or Africa, they had no more hometown in North America. But the law was predicated on the notion that everybody had a permanent residence somewhere. So getting people back to their place of residence was the first rule. And they went to a great length to move people back home or where they thought might be home. And when they bumped up against people who were recently immigrated or who had been enslaved and were now free, those fell on the largesse or the charity of the colony or the province rather than the local community. Everybody else, it was up to the local community. Your town, your hometown was responsible from cradle to grave for your well-being.
What do we have a sense of? I mean, do we have a sense of the specifics of what poverty looked like then, and then also what kinds of things a community might do to help mitigate that poverty? Are we talking about like people could not find food? Are we talking people could not? They didn't have shoes. Like, what does poverty look like in this time period, and how did communities deal with it?
It's very grim. When you think about the look of poverty, think about inadequate clothing, shoes if you were lucky, inadequate food. The thing that strikes me most about it is that their lodgings were so miserable. They didn't own their own homes. They were living in a room in someone else's house. There was a good deal of people living on the land or on like trying to get food from the landscape, living in the summertime, living in the fields. Often people who were seasonal migrating migrant laborers who would work in the farm fields, they would sleep in the farm fields as well, or maybe sometimes in the barn. So the exposure to the elements was one of the big things that loomed large as a problem for poor people. You couldn't protect yourself from the elements. You got sick, you got infections, you had accidents on the job, and that's what rendered you. And then there's no safety net. There's no safety net that we think of today that says, we're going to swoop in and take care of you, send you to a shelter or whatever. So it was up to the local community to devise just exactly how they would care for poor people. And every local community raised poor taxes for just this purpose.
Wow.
So the idea was get the poor people back in a hometown where they belonged or have the state support them. And then all the children in that family were at risk for being taken out of the family, taken away from the parents. A lot of them were orphans. A lot of them were illegitimate children, but taken away from their parents and then placed into a home where it was more prosperous, where the head of the household would become the master, and he would be in charge of the children's care, their everyday maintenance, plus a little bit of education in work skills and a little bit of education in literacy. And all that was part of a contract. The master and his family took care of this child until the child reached adulthood, which was usually 18 for girls and 21 for boys. So warn people out, move them back to their hometowns, bind out the children, and then wherever the adults were left, you supply what they called outdoor relief right into the household where they were staying. There might be someone in the household was a caretaker, and she or he would receive money from the town to take care of the poor people that were lodging with them.
Wow. You're listening to The Curiosity Desk. We're talking about child poverty in early America with historian Dr. Ruth Wallace Hearndon. Also with us in studio, GBH's Matt Welch. And I'm going to bring you in now, Matt, because you've got a personal story here that connects with just what Ruth was talking about. So tell us, kind of start at the beginning for us here in that, I just said in the lead, like you were like a lot of people kind of going like, hey, I want to know more about my family history. So you're doing the thing, you're going through Ancestry, et cetera. And what happens that sort of changes everything for you, so to speak?
Well, definitely, like you said, just probably 3 years ago, I would say, got a membership to Ancestry, and I'd never known growing up really what my family's origins were from either side, and both my parents grew up in a small town, and both their families were from that same small town in northern Maine. And so just had curiosity is how did we get there? Where did we come from?
Curiosity here.
Exactly. Like everybody else. And so, like I said, probably 2.5, 3 years ago, I started digging on Ancestry. And it was, fun. I was finding stuff that I didn't know, starting with my parents and working back to grandparents and then great-grandparents who I had a little bit of knowledge of.
Sure.
But then getting beyond that, and just, the more I dug, the more I was finding in censuses and other things, kind of establishing these family networks and the parents and moving back. And it probably took me about, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 months to get back to the aforementioned Henry Welch, my fifth great grandfather. And then I was just stuck.
Yeah.
And I knew that he was from where he was from in Maine. I knew that he had a big family and he was documented as being there, lightly documented, but documented. I knew kind of his wife's name was Tamsin, and all of the documentation now is, from the colonial era. And so, it's all very, very frilly, scripty handwriting that we're not that used to anymore, even if you learn some cursive in school. And one of the things that I found that helped me initially was that people had misinterpreted Tamsin's name, thinking that the capital T in her first name was actually a J. And so people come up with all these different versions of Jamassi and all these different versions of what her name was. Anyway, the primary thing that I had establishing him in that was that I had the probate records for his death sometime around 1811, and Tamsin, or Tamsy as she was going by at that point, was the executrix of his estate. And it's sad to say, it turns out they didn't have enough money to pay off their debtors. So that's not great. But kept searching in that area in Maine and more broadly in Maine, just pretty much, in my opinion, exhausted my Ancestry.com.
Yeah.
And then ended up going on Google and just randomly, because both my kids were a bit younger, and I remember my younger child, I would sit in the room in the dark while I was doing bedtime with him, and I'd just be on my phone, just searching, wherever I could look. Anyway, eventually, by searching Henry Welch, I came up with and landed on some records, both from some pieces that have been published about Wellfleet, probably back in the 70s or 60s, and then also some documents that the Boston Public Library had that were talking about this child, Henry Welch, who had been indentured, at which point I didn't know what that even meant, to a man named Reuben Newcomb. And following those records, I was able to establish a child, Henry Welch, obviously a minor, was admitted to the almshouse in Boston along with his sister Mary in 1771, and that the following year in 1772 he was indentured out to a man named Reuben Newcomb, who at that point I think had one young child and his wife, and they were living out in Wellfleet. And I'm like, could this be? Could this be?
Yeah.
Could this be the same one? And I was pursuing every different route I could find. And eventually what it came down to was establishing that this child was indeed
the same
my adult
Welch,
ancestor who died, in 1811, was by following his much better documented master and determining that Reuben Newcomb. So I have no record from Henry from when he gets indentured out in 1772 until he gets married in 1788. In Hamden, Maine, or Orrington, Maine. But I was able to establish that Reuben Newcomb was then living in that same town as Henry. And
So
then
the
by
pieces
going back through that,
Yeah.
and that Reuben's child, who was a little bit younger than Henry, got married in that same church. And then I was actually eventually able to find evidence that Reuben Newcomb was known to have moved from the Cape up to the Penobscot. It's kind of in the Bangor area now. And there was a large migration, I guess, of people from the Cape during about a 20-year time span during that period up there.
Oh, interesting.
And so that's how my family ended up in Maine, because the indentured servant went with his master. Yep.
So what starts going when it starts to dawn on you that he has a master, that he's indentured from a young age? What starts going through your mind?
Yeah. made me, I think at first it was pretty negative, just feeling like sad for this kid that this was the case, that, he's sent to the poorhouse. There's no mention of parents, no mention of any family. And then a year later, he is sent out to this person, who presumably he doesn't even know. And by doing the math backwards from when his indentureship ends, and as Ruth said, typically for boys it would be 21, that would mean he was 8 years old that he was indentured out, and 7 when he went to the poorhouse. Wow. And like my youngest son is 10. And so, just thinking about what that would be like for a child that age, as a parent, that was tough. Yeah. And thinking about, oh, what a horrible life it must have been. And it very well may have been. But honestly, having talked to Ruth about it, it sounds like in some instances, this was probably the best case scenario that could have happened for, a child. And the thing is that after Henry finishes his indentureship in 1785, I believe, he continues to live there, and he has property. Like, so he has a farm.
So he does something with his life.
So it sounds like he does something with his life, and one can make the presumption that perhaps Reuben was a good guy and helped him get set up, and that when Henry was then a free man, again, he chose to continue living in that same community with Reuben and to get married there and to have kids. But then cutting to the Ruth and Matt connection. So every couple of months, I still just go on Google and say, is there something new? Can I try a different combination of words to find out something new? And probably late winter, early spring, I was doing that again, and something new popped up. And Henry Welch was mentioned in an article that had been published in I think it's the P-Town Eagle, Provincetown Eagle, which I'd never heard of.
The Independent.
The
Independent.
All right. Thank you, Ruth. And they actually had a picture of Henry's indentureship, and they were talking a little bit about him. And at the end, the person who wrote the article mentioned Ruth and the research that she had been doing into, child indentureship, particularly in this article in Wellfleet. And so I reached out to the journalist, and he didn't really have a contact for her. And so I just started Googling Ruth instead of Henry.
Google master over here.
And found that she was a professor at Bowling Green. And so I just cold email Ruth and said, hey, on the off chance that you're interested in talking, this is my relative, and I would really love to know if you know anything about where this child came from before he got to the almshouse.
All right, Ruth, I want to talk to you a little bit about what goes through your mind when Matt contacts you. But before that, how can you give us a sense of the story that you hear Matt telling about his ancestor and the sort of gap in the record where he sort of seems to disappear? How common is that in your understanding? I mean, was that happening all the time?
People who are trying to trace their ancestors often hit a wall like that. Think about the people who are people of color whose parents or grandparents or great-great-grandparents had been enslaved. Yeah. And then suddenly they're free and they don't appear in the census records with the same name or in the same place that they were before, because a lot of them migrate as soon as they can. That is a very common problem that historians, genealogists meet. They can only get so far back, and then there's a wall. In the case of these kids, I have been working on this for 20 years, trying to trace kids starting at their point of indenture and moving forward. So doing the opposite of what Matt did. Yeah. What happened to them when they became adults? Were they still alive when their contract ended? Did the girls get married? Did the boys go into the military? Those are the most common records I can find. So I'm constantly looking, and this is the first time I have met someone who was descended from one of these.
Wow,
I'm looking at
in 20 years?
Yeah. This is the group of kids, or kids who were bound out in Boston between 1680 and 1820. And it's about 3,000 kids that I've been able to find their contracts. And out of all of those, one, I mean, it's just amazing. But lately, I've actually been hitting some pay dirt. So within a month of talking to Matt, I was tracing another kid, on last name Ackley, and it turned out that because the Ackley father, the father of these kids who were bound out, had been present at the Boston Tea Party in 1773, his name had gone on a list of sort of famous patriots. And there were people who had been able to trace their heritage back to him. So there's another family.
Yeah, there's
So
another through line.
it's two. But in terms of personally meeting, to me, it was a miracle that someone who could actually trace his descent from one of these kids was there looking for the story. And I was starting from the other end, looking for the people from who were descended from that child.
So I want to find. I think I can sort of squint my brain and understand, but I want to get to like why this is so important to you. I'm fascinated by the fact that you're sort of both like heading toward this same person in a way from opposite ends of the timeline. But Ruth, as somebody who researches this, why is it important to you? What is driving you to say like I want to know what happened, from this point forward? Why does that matter?
When I first started this work, I was looking at looking at the town records in 15 Rhode Island towns. This was back when I was writing my dissertation many years ago. I was looking at how each town that I studied weathered the Revolutionary War. And in order to figure that out, I looked at the town records from 1750 to 1800, that whole 50-year period. And I looked for certain things. What changed in that 50-year period? And the best informants were the town council or town selectmen records, the 6 or 7 people who were elected to solve the problems in the town. And their records, their minutes, they met very frequently to solve, no, there's a smallpox epidemic. There's a bunch of dogs running loose that are spreading disease. So they would be solving all these problems. And I kept bumping into this, kids being bound out. I didn't understand the system. It took me a while to grasp just how the system worked. It's one thing to see how the system works, how poverty is relieved, but it's another thing to understand how poor people survived their situations.
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to piece together their stories just the same way that, we have stories of famous people all over the place. The elites leave lots of records. We have lots of detail, but we don't hear much about ordinary people who fell into misfortune, people like Henry Welch. And I wanted to know what happened to poor people. And in my first book, The Unwelcome Americans, was all about people who were warned out, sent away from their communities. What happened to them? Where did they end up? And this, you could almost look at this project I'm working on now, Children of Misfortune, as sort of a sequel to that. I want to know what happens to these poor people's kids. The adults are being sent out of the town. What happens to the children? Do they grow up? Do they have a future? Curiosity Desk is the right place for this because curiosity that's been driving me for quite a while to know what happened to these kids.
And how about from your end, Matt? I mean, like you seem to have gripped onto this thing. I mean, it's your 5th great grandfather. I think most people kind of understand you can get caught up in family history and just want to know. Yeah. But you've had to like hammer away at this. Why?
Couple of reasons. I think one is that I grew up not really having any idea what my family history was. And so I'd like to try to selfishly, personally find out what that is, but also establish it for my kids and, hopefully their own children someday. And honestly, with Henry Welch in particular, and this sounds kind of weird, but I almost have like a paternal longing. Granted, it's my 5th great grandfather, but for that 8-year-old child and finding out what happened to this child, like how did he end up in the almshouse? And I kind of feel like I'm obligated to find out exactly what his story was, so that others can know about it. I think is really, and the thing that both Ruth and I are continuing to dig into, and so far have not hit any real pay dirt, is figuring out where Henry and his sister Mary, who were admitted to the almshouse in 1771, came from.
Yeah.
There's lots of Welch families in the area during the time, but none recorded as having a Henry and a Mary child during that time period. And so that's really been, once I got over that first big obstacle, getting him from Maine to a child in Boston, is probably for the last year and a half. I've been trying to figure out where did they come from?
You said you didn't know that much about your family history. Have you, in this process, met like new relatives or other people who have joined the fight with you?
I have
Really?
Indeed. Yes, my cousin Hal, who is, I believe, my father's half cousin, who my parents actually did know about, but I think
failed
we just
to mention.
Well, that seems mean, so I'm not gonna say that. Maybe I failed to remember. But anyway, it turns out my cousin Hal was in a similar place with having Henry being kind of stuck in Hampden, Maine, and not knowing where he came from as a child. So he and I have now teamed up. And we actually went to the Boston Public Library just a couple of days ago and got to see they actually have Henry's indentureship certificate, the actual thing, all written out. It's a form and all filled in, and we were able to actually see it and look at it and touch it and study it, and that was something.
Yeah. All right, we've been speaking with Ruth Wallace Hearndon, who's a professor emerita at Bowling Green State University in Ohio and an expert on early American social history. You could check out her books and another book coming down the pike. Keep your eyes open for that. And Matt Welch, Associate Creative Director here at GBH News. Thank you both so much for being with us today on the Curiosity Desk.
Thank you, Edgar. Thank you, Ruth.
When we return, what can we learn about life and ourselves through the buttons we wore? Two diehard enthusiasts venture to convince us that if we are not into buttons, we are missing out. This is the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. Don't go anywhere.
On All Things Considered, you get the big stories,
What are you hearing from sources inside the agency?
the pressing questions,
Congressman, how do you respond to that?
and moments of joy to keep you going.
It took me a few days. I perfected it.
Really? Can I hear that?
End your day on a high note with All Things Considered from NPR News.
This afternoon at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And GM Roth Design Remodeling, providing custom kitchens, bathrooms, and accessory dwelling units. Their design team works to create living-in-place solutions tailored to the needs of each home and family. More information at gmroth.com. And the David M. Rubenstein Americana Collection in support of the JFK Library's exhibit Declaring the Revolution, America's Printed Path to Independence, featuring historic documents that inspired the Declaration of Independence. jfklibrary.org.
You are listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We're streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. This would be a good time to check out the live stream if you're not already, because we are about to talk about buttons, and the button folks have brought in a lot of buttons. Yes, as you celebrate America 250, you've likely reflected on some things, perhaps legacy of historic figures, art and artifacts that tell the stories of the generations before us, maybe the landmarks where the history was made. But have you been thinking about buttons? I bet you haven't. And maybe you ought to be. So today, we welcome two members of the National Button Society. Yes, they exist. National Button Society Publicity Chair Kendall Clark and Vice President Matthew Brown. They're going to make their case for why these small pieces of American history deserve a closer look. By the way, this is ahead of their National Annual Button Convention, which this year's theme is a button revolution. Kendall, Matthew, thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, well, thank you for having us.
Do we have a term for button lovers? Or people who collect buttons? Or we just say, what do I say? Button lovers? Is that the one? Or button aficionados?
That's a good one.
Button geeks? Is that okay? Do we embrace that? Button nerds?
Oh, we embrace our geekitude every single day of our existence.
That's great. All right. Why? But how did you? Let's start. Each give me the thumbnail sketch of how you got into buttons. You start, Kendall.
I got into buttons via beads. So I was a bead freak in the 80s and 90s when I was very young.
Yeah.
And would go to, if some people out there will remember, embellishment shows where you'd go to these conventions looking at beads and fabulous bead makers. And lo and behold, I came across a table with buttons. And that was it.
Love at first sight.
Took my breath away. Yes, done.
All right. I like that. How about for you, Matthew?
Gosh, I would have to go a lot further back because I was a very precocious, talkative child, and I was the seventh child in the family.
Seventh?
Yes.
Wow.
And sometimes Mom needed a break. And so she would send me away and say, Matthew, take the button box, go sort those buttons for me. And so,
oh, wow.
I suppose I had to be a preschooler, probably.
Yeah.
And there was a long, long gap then before I actually started collecting buttons. But I think I just always have been attracted by the colors and the textures and tactile pleasure of handling buttons.
So when we talk about like button collecting or whatever, like are we talking about like simply just the buttons that would be on your shirt? Is there a whole range of things that fall under buttons? Like what kind of buttons are people collecting?
Probably not the buttons that are on your shirt
Right.
today. No one's going to come and steal them from
'Cause
you.
they're not
I
great?
promise. They're made in the billions, and so they're
Fair
not so
enough.
unusual and not something that maybe brings us a lot
They
of.
don't have that je ne sais quoi.
Exactly.
Oh, good for you.
Hey, thank you.
So, what buttons do people collect? I mean, yeah, maybe this would be a great
We
time,
have-
Kendall, to show us some examples.
Yeah, let's go.
NBS talks about buttons in terms of age. These would be 19th century.
So it's the
buttons.
1800s.
So
Right.
these are 1800s. And these are different varieties, but the top focuses on metal. So
Yeah.
tons of different metal buttons and techniques. There's the cut steel and jewels. These are shell in the middle. And
It's
the big
actual
one in
real
the middle.
shells turned into buttons.
Absolutely.
Wow, cool.
And that's the one shell,
Yeah.
the type of shell, I should say, that the U.S. was first famous for. The
Really?
Midwest, the muscatine
Shell
oyster
buttons.
shell.
That
yes,
was a
cranked them out
US
by the
thing.
billions.
Mm.
Yes, but the center one is a coachman's button. So in the 19th century, your coachman would be sporting a series of these on a coat.
Wow.
They're
big.
Yes, they are.
They
big.
are much bigger than we think of a shirt button today.
Yes, absolutely. And these are different enamel techniques. And these are various glass. So it shows you just, you can talk about the same material, but a lot of different images and techniques.
Yeah. So do you, when people who fall into this world, I mean, you said that, sort of in the National Button Society, you think in terms of things in terms of age. Like, do button collectors or button aficionados, as they get into, do they fall into a specific niche? Is that like, I'm into this era of buttons, I'm into that era of buttons? Like, for you, Matthew, do you have like a specialty? I'm into these kind of buttons, or are you a generalist?
Yeah, I like pretty buttons.
I'm the same way.
You're the same way. So
But I was
you
gonna
can't
say-
say no to a good button.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
But that's one of the good things about our hobby is that there really is something for everybody and different styles of collecting, because there are people who kind of approach it like collecting stamps or coins,
Yeah.
where they know, for example, with China calico buttons, which a lot of them were imported from France in the 19th century, and those collectors know that this button was made with these 400 different patterns and these 12 different colors, and I need one of each.
Right,
And they,
right. You
they're
just,
filling
like-
out their book, and
Yep.
they'll say, "Oh, I need that one in blue," and
Yep.
and when they're shopping at the convention, they'll be looking for
That
pattern
one in
number
blue, yeah.
47 in light blue, and
Yeah.
that's a perfectly valid way of collecting.
Sure.
I don't think I could do that.
That's not your vibe.
No. I can show. These are some things from my collection.
Yeah, let's see. What do you got in your
Are you
collection?
gonna be our
I'll hold-
spokesmodel,
I'll be Vanna.
Kendall? Okay.
No.
excellent.
Then you can see.
Okay, yeah, so I
And
can
you
see.
can talk about
So these top 4 rows here are kind of taking us through the history of decorative arts from the middle of the 19th century with the Japanism movement.
So we've got a couple multiple color. What are they made of? Those.
So all of 3 of those in the top row are also made of shell. Those
Oh,
are
they're
made of
beautiful.
oyster pearl from saltwater shell, not freshwater shell.
And then are they etched and colored? Is that how it works?
Well, these all have different types of gilding techniques. There's silver foil, gold gilding.
Yeah. So for folks who are just listening, I'm trying to it's about the size, maybe slightly larger than a $50.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got you can tell it's shell when you say shell, and then just these intricate patterns sort of carved
Yes,
on them.
yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yes.
Then you have a metal one down here, which
So this one is silver, probably silver. It's not
Yeah.
marked. This is from the British arts and crafts movement, so late 19th, very early 20th century. And then, as I said, the base of the button is made from silver, but has pieces of a different kind of shell, abalone shell, as the decorative elements on that. Yeah, there are a lot of shell buttons on here, aren't
Yes,
there?
you love.
So I think we're finding out you do
he
have a
didn't
niche.
mention shell.
You
yeah,
do
yeah.
have a niche.
Yeah,
which
and
is
I-
comes
shell
out.
buttons.
It
Yeah,
comes
and
out.
I have to say I did literally write the book on it. So these are from the Art Nouveau period. You can see, the natural world taken into these very flowing, freeform
Yeah.
pictures. Then we move on to Art Deco and the vibrant colors and the brilliant contrast between the materials. The material of these two buttons are casing, which is a type of plastic, and the one on the other end there is Bakelite, which was a contemporary plastic from the second quarter of the 20th century. Then more shell buttons
Yeah,
on the
there
bottom.
it is. So the love of shell. So when we look at buttons, I mean, I'm looking at how you have those laid out there on this, and I can see something of like something of an art history lesson sort of playing out right
that's
there.
kind of what I was shooting for. So thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for seeing.
You absolutely see that. But do buttons tell us a story? I mean, for some collectors,
absolutely.
you say
Well,
it's like ticking off a list, but for others, does it somehow give us a history of how people were living or what they were doing? What can we learn about the way we have lived from buttons? If anything?
That's kind of the last row on the card here are the
Yeah.
buttons that have are connected with history. This button is from the French Revolution period, and this was a group of noblemen in Brittany were fed up with paying their taxes to the court of Louis XVI, and so they elected a delegation of 12 guys, 12 men, of course, les 12 amis, who were going to be sent to the court to protest and say, we're done paying your taxes. And in Latin, around the edge of the border, you've got their motto, which translates roughly as death before dishonor. So they were very determined that they were not going to pay these taxes. And they had, of course, also because they were gentlemen of the 18th century, they needed special buttons on their frock coat to go to appear at court. And so they had the whole delegation, the 12 friends, had these buttons made up to be put on their frock coats. And we know this because Chateaubriand wrote it all down in one of his books of the history of the Revolution.
Wow. Cool.
And this middle button is at the end of World War I. It's souvenir of the victory in 1918, which I think it's maybe more difficult for Americans to understand what Europeans lived through during World War I. And I know, just as one example, the first town where I lived and worked in France had been literally 98% wiped off the map in World War I.
Yeah.
So we have to just imagine the feeling of when that war was finally over, and they were so happy that they had to put it on a button.
How about for you, Kendall? Is there like a moment or two in history that your love of collecting buttons has like kind of opened up to you? A story?
Oh gosh. Well, I love the 18th century. And I'm going to hold up. This isn't quite as substantive as what Matthew just shared, okay?
That's okay.
But just another avenue for appreciation. On this card, there aren't very many buttons, but they're all 18th century, so they were handcrafted. This is all.
So these all have sort of metal rings on the outside.
Yes, and they were all big. Yes, they're all copper. Well, brass, maybe copper, with glass over, except for the shell. There is a large
shell one.
But they're all these I call gestures of love.
Gestures of love.
And keep in mind that for the most part, meaning 99% of the time, the buttons certainly of this size, they were on the men's clothing.
Oh.
The coats, as Matthew has alluded to. Women were still tied into their laced into their clothes. But there's a little variety here. So there's and this is, of course, I don't know these people. So I'm filling in the blanks. But this first one celebrates an anniversary. It's got to be a wedding, because this is a painting on ivory, and the detail. I don't know if your camera guys can zoom in, but it's phenomenal. And you can see two birds with rings, which marriage, and there's a year here. I love this kind of image, and you see this often in 18th century. It's a woman with a bird tied to a string.
Cool.
Mourning buttons,
they tell
not
these
moments in history. They're moments in a
people's
very
lives.
Exactly, very personal.
So, do you think people ought to care more about buttons than they do? Like just the average person, you think we should care more about buttons than we do? Or are you happy kind of with the community that you have? And
we have a great community.
They're not into it,
and we always are welcome and certainly open to having new people who discover it. And again, as I was kind of saying before, there is something for everyone. You just have to find what gets you excited and the stories that you're interested in following up and the rabbit holes you want to go down. But there is something for everybody. And
So what happens at the convention? It's open to the public? Is there
Absolutely,
something just
yes.
like if I'm
Yes.
hearing this on the radio right now and I'm going, you know what, buttons, these sound pretty cool.
I'm
I wanna
heading there.
check it
That
out.
would be awesome.
So what goes on?
Well, on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday
Okay.
are open to the public. Right now, there are a couple hundred of us out there
Just in
already.
there, like, doing your
but there are a
thing,
lot
yeah.
of meetings and just that sort of thing. But
Sure.
for those 3 days, Thursday through Saturday, 10 to 5, the showroom is open. Folks can come in, and there are button dealers from around the world and see these for sale. There's a competition. They'll be able to see thousands, literally, of buttons like this. And there's educational stuff so you can really learn, pick up something and learn. And there's also, each day there are maybe 1 or 2 talks.
Yeah.
So you can sit in on that.
Right on. Matthew, what are you going to do at the convention?
Work.
Are you selling buttons? Are you
Yes,
buying buttons?
I will
Are
be
you-
selling. I will be buying every chance I get. I'm the person, part of my role as the vice president is to introduce all of our speakers. I'll be interviewing our keynote speaker, who is Beau McCall, who's, I think, a pretty well-known artist in
I
the
see
Northeast.
Jared Bowen has joined us in studio. He's nodding. This is our host of The Culture Show coming up next.
Yeah,
So
I have featured him on The Culture Show.
There you go.
And on the PBS NewsHour.
We are absolutely looking forward
Yes.
to hearing his take on buttons,
Yeah.
which I think is coming from a very different point of view. But everybody, it's a big tent.
All right, we've been speaking with National Button Society Publicity Chair Kendall Clark and Vice President Matthew Brown while they're in the area for that convention. The America 250 themed button convention has already started, but as you heard, you can check it out this weekend. You can get the information you're looking for at nationalbuttonsociety.org. That's nationalbuttonsociety.org. Thank you both very much.
Thank you so
And
much.
Turning my attention back to the aforementioned Jared Bowen. Jared, I'm looking at your buttons at my buttons. Your buttons I think are better than my buttons on your shirt.
I think they're a little boring, but yeah.
They're all right. They look nice in contrast to the shirt you're wearing.
Yeah, thank you.
What do you got on the Culture Show today, Jared?
We're going back to the Summer of Love by
Ooh.
way of a new novel by Carrie Marr, she's made it her most personal novel. It's a novel about growing up in California. It's about the vineyards of California, and it's about addiction and alcoholism and the struggles through that. So it all comes to the fore in her new novel. Plus, we'll have Hani Farid. I don't know about you, but I have such trouble now when I look at images online trying to figure out if what I'm looking at is real or not. I think
It is so true.
we're living in the misinformation age, and he has long been the forensics expert around this, and he'll tell us why it's difficult even for him in this moment.
Yep.
He's also a Dartmouth College professor. And then there's a new Museum of Fine Arts exhibition of Rosângela Reno, who is a Brazilian artist. People call her the photographer who doesn't take pictures because she looks at photographic archives to tell stories, but by documenting them herself. And there's a fabulous, fabulous new installation of her work at the Museum of Fine Arts right now.
All right, that's another great one coming your way. Jared Bowen and the Culture Show in less than 2 minutes, so do not go anywhere. As for us, that about does it for now. Thanks to the production crew here at GBH and the producers of the show. We'll be right back in 23 short hours here on GBH. Until then, I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Stay curious out there.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Newbury Court, serving Concord, Massachusetts for 30 years as a not-for-profit continuing care retirement community dedicated to older adults. More at newburycourt.org. From Cold War space races to modern lunar missions by multiple nations, follow humanity's journey to the stars. The new series, Once Upon a Time in Space, continues tomorrow at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, protests, painted vans, and the prismatic hallucinations of psychedelics. The 1967 Summer of Love delivered a joyous jolt to a generation. But what happened to the hippies when summer gave way to fall and the rest of life beckoned? Carrie Marr's new novel, Summer of Love, takes us to California wine country where generations of women mark their own vintage. Then, when every image can be faked, who decides what is real? Governments, courts, and newsrooms have long turned to digital forensics pioneer Hani Farid. But now even he is questioning whether his eye and his tools can keep up with advances in AI. So what happens when seeing is no longer believing? And a new Museum of Fine Arts exhibition follows migration between Brazil and the United States, exploring what photographs preserve, what political power erases, and how memory is remade across borders. That's all right now on The Culture Show.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show, live on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. In 1967, San Francisco was transformed by the Summer of Love. It was a counterculture revolution of peace, love, and hallucinogenics. The Haight-Ashbury neighborhood of San Francisco was overtaken by concerts, anti-war protests, and spiritual awakenings, aided and abetted by Jim Morrison, among others. The summer may have been fleeting, but it's lived on in its intergenerational impact. It's also the prompt for USA Today bestselling author Carrie Marr's new novel, Summer of Love. The book moves from that indelible summer to California wine country, to the vineyards of France, from women carving out singularity in a 1970s man's world, to the struggles of alcoholism. Marr joins me now to talk about the book, her experiences growing up on the West Coast, and how addressing her own addiction shaped her latest and most personal novel. Carrie Marr, welcome to The Culture Show. Congratulations on the book.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I am excited to talk to you about all the places you take us in this book, the road trip, and as I mentioned, to the vineyards of France and beyond. But this is, how personal would you say this is for you?
It's very personal, sort of in two major ways. One is that I was actually born and raised in California. I've now lived the last 16 years in the Boston area, but California has my heart, we might say. And also I'm 4.5 years sober. So those are some things that I wanted to write about.
Well, let's start with the California part. I mean, I love California so much. I'm a native New Englander, but I really love California. What is it about that landscape, which you write about so beautifully, that there's almost a glow that you feel when you are there?
It's true. I mean, something I say in my author's note is that it's captured authors as different as Joan Didion and Robert Louis Stevenson and Amy Tan, There is something about the quality of the light. There's something about the fact that you can drive 2 hours in any direction and be in a completely different climate and geography. There is something kind of magical about that. And, the other thing I really wanted to capture was the farm-to-table deliciousness of the state.
Well, you were not alive for the Summer of Love in 1967, but what did you see in that, and how is that so Californian? What happened in that summer?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in California. I come from California native parents who met at UC Berkeley in the 1960s. And so I really grew up with stories from that amazing time and place. And then I went to Berkeley in the 90s, which really wasn't that long after the 60s. In the scheme of things. And the 60s was very much alive and well in Berkeley in the 90s, the peace signs, the resistance posters, all the things. And so, this was just living in me as a time period. I didn't even need to do very much research about it. I had to do a lot of fact checking. But I really wanted to write about it.
But what drew you into what people were experiencing and how life and love was being found in that time?
Yeah, I listen to family stories. I'm in midlife now, and so I really wanted to be able to explore the concept of love from a few different angles, and I wanted to explore it from an intergenerational perspective. So, we have the grandparents who bought the vineyard not long after Prohibition was lifted, and then we meet, and the father. This is not a spoiler. The father is dead when the novel opens, and then we have his daughters, one of whom is in the 60s trying to make California wine that rivals French wine. And the 60s into the 70s is such an exciting period for California wine. It culminates in the Judgment of Paris in 1976. And then I really wanted to take a look at how that affects the next generation. Dawn is the one in the 2015 storyline. She's the same age that I am. So, I got to give her a lot of the sort of perspective on love and, intergenerational experiences of love, and also California and substances and all of the themes of the book.
And that we should mention, you've indicated this, but we move back and forth in time among these women. The woman from the 60s, her sister, and then Dawn. I'll try not to say much more than this because it all comes together in a very revealing way. But when I found it fascinating to learn so much about the California wine industry, which I had assumed had been thriving for a long time, but it really hadn't. Of course, it had to be shaped.
Yeah, this was something I did have to do a lot of research on, and it's so interesting. I sort of think of California wine as having a pre-Prohibition period and a post-Prohibition period, and everything we kind of associate with a beautiful glass of California Chardonnay is really in the post-Prohibition period. That's the period in which all the wines that Stag's Leap and all of those were being made. But there really was a lot of wine being made in the pre-Prohibition period. But when Prohibition hit, a lot of those vines were just pulled up and other crops were planted. A lot of orchards and things were planted instead. And so that was really interesting. But there's California wine going back to the Spanish conquerors.
Well, we find these two women, Miranda and Winnie, who are two sisters who, as you mentioned, are inheriting this vineyard, one more so than the other. This is where the fictional part starts to take place, because we didn't see a lot of women doing what your characters are doing at this time. How did you find your way into women standing up for themselves, trying to create a business and moving forward in the 60s and into the 70s when it was all male-dominated?
Yeah, I think that I feel like I'm entering, Lessons in Chemistry is about a chemist who, makes her way in the 1950s and 60s in chemistry and then in television. I feel like this novel kind of shows Miranda charting a similar path through the wine industry. The deck was totally stacked against her. Agriculture in California is still a predominantly male, industry. And so I really wanted to take a look at what would that have been like for her? What would it have been like for her to go to the California Wine Association meetings and have to talk about a particular subject? What would it have been like for her to try and market her wine as a female vintner? Now, this is where I have to give a little bit of a mea culpa, because there really weren't very many or any female vintners of note until the 70s into the 80s in California. So Miranda is truly a trailblazer in my fictional vineyard of Hartley Vineyard.
Well, it's interesting for you to point out that you're at midlife at this point, as is the character Dawn, who has to look back, or doesn't have to, but does look back on her mother's life and how she grew up on this vineyard and comes to terms with family secrets, comes to terms with what her mother had to do to find herself. It's an interesting point of life to look back and understand how you, as the younger generation, got where you were when you realize that you're the same age as your parents when they're starting out.
Right, exactly. And she, again, without giving too much away, Dawn really has to reckon with the choices she has made. And in doing so, she's ultimately able to see the choices that her mother has made through a different lens.
And is that part of an exercise that you have done? I mean, how much of this becomes autobiographical as you're writing? How much of yourself do you bring into your works in general?
Yeah, this is, I've been very open about the fact that this is my most personal book. I would say that none of these characters are me and my family. And they're all me and my family. Both can be true, right? My parents, like I said, met at Berkeley in the 60s. And so I was able to kind of give that vibe to the book. But my parents could not have been more different from my characters. My dad, though, actually was involved with agriculture in California kind of adjacently. He ran a Freightliner truck dealership. So he, was talking to the people who were hauling wine and tomatoes and things in and out of the San Joaquin Valley. So I grew up in the San Joaquin Valley, which is kind of Napa adjacent for anyone who might be looking at a California map right now.
I'm speaking with Carrie Mayer. We're talking about her new book, Summer of Love. I find it so interesting that even if a character isn't necessarily, even if you find very little biographical attachment to them, how do you get into these characters' minds? Because you have three very different women here, not to mention a fourth, who is Dawn's friend with whom she goes on this road trip through California. They're all very different.
They are. And, this is such an interesting question. If my editor is out there listening, she'll enjoy this story. So a couple of books ago, when I kind of moved away from writing about real life women who I was doing research on, my editor kind of suggested that I write my own mini biographies of my characters. And initially I thought, do I really need to do that? And then I did try it, and it was so helpful. So actually, before I start any book now, I sit down and I think about who this character is. I think about where they've come from, kind of major moments in their life. What do they want? What do they actually need? And I write all of that down. And then I sit down and write the book. Now, maybe you're familiar with the term pantser and plotter.
No, I don't know this.
Well,
this is new.
This is okay. Well, this is in writing circles. You're either a pantser or a plotter. A plotter is someone who sits down and plots their book out to varying degrees of granularity. Pantsers write by the seat of their pants. So I'm by nature a pantser, although in life I'm actually a plotter, but in my writing I'm a pantser. So I've done all of this thinking, this biographical writing, but when I actually sit down and write the first draft of the book shows me really who these people are. And so I actually go back into that original document, the biographical document, and make some changes so that, because you do forget things, as this is almost 100,000 word document. So it's hard to remember everything and have everything in your mind at the same time. So I go back into the biographical document and make changes so that when I revise the book, I can go back to that and go, oh yes, I remember that's what I was thinking.
When you say the book reveals itself, what do you experience when you sit down?
It depends on the day. Sometimes
I should mention you have a huge smile on your face right now as you're thinking about this process.
I mean, there is really nothing else that I want to do. I mean, there are other things that I want to do, but writing is such a difficult profession, and there's so much no involved in the profession. You have to truly love it in order to pursue it. So I do love it. I love it every time I sit down, even when I'm beating my head. I feel like I'm beating my head against a wall. Some days it feels like I'm laying track in front of a train that is coming toward me. And other days it literally feels like a joyride with friends.
Let's move to the alcoholism and an addiction and recovery, which you write about so vividly in this novel. Did you set out to have people understand this experience, or what did you want people to take away from one character in particular who is experiencing this?
Yeah, so there are two characters who are experiencing it in different ways. And, I was almost 2 years sober by the time I sat down to write it. It was my second round with being a non-drinker. I had not really embraced the term sobriety my first round, so I try to keep those terms separate. And so I did, it was almost like I couldn't not write about it. I had to explore it in some kind of way in my writing. And so I was aware that was what I was doing. I never want my novels to feel like issue novels. So I really, 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 this is where the biography becomes super helpful, right? I really want everything that happens and all the choices that characters make to come from the character and to feel very authentic. So that's important to me. my agent pointed out a few times in the process of bringing the book along, she's like, Carrie, it's not just people who are struggling themselves who are going to get a lot out of this book. Everyone has a family member, a friend, someone in their life who may be struggling or who they know is struggling. And that, books like this can really help others understand what that struggle might feel like. And obviously not all struggles are the same. I don't want to say that, but it's a window onto the experience.
Well, to that end, you had one line in the novel that really stood out to me, and you were essentially describing alcoholism. It's like a San Francisco train bound for New York. Explain what the understanding is there.
So I have to credit my great aunt who lives in San Francisco, who I stayed at her apartment when I was doing the research, my own road trip research for this book, who is 12-step sober. And this was actually a story that she got long ago in a 12-step meeting. She said, she's like, alcoholism, alcohol use disorder, whatever you want to call it, it's like you board a train in San Francisco. That train is heading for New York, whether you like it or not. It's going to New York. Where are you going to get off? And, people, I think what I like to call the new sobriety encourages people to get off in Chicago or Salt Lake City. And you don't have to get all the way to New York, right? Some people go all the way to New York a few times, and it's all part of the process.
Including, I also found this really fascinating, that there is more than one process, that it isn't necessarily the 12-step program, because
That's
we
right.
find Dawn doing something very different.
Yeah. So for people who might be familiar with another local Boston area writer, Laura McCowan, who's written a few memoirs about her experience of alcohol use. Part of the reason I set the Dawn storyline in 2015 is it's a little Easter egg, because Laura McCowan and this woman named Holly Whitaker had this podcast called The Home Podcast, and they were in their early days of non-12-step sobriety trying to find a different way. And I think that one of the things that a lot of us learned from listening to that podcast and following the two of them on social media is that there are many paths. And since 2015, more official businesses have actually cropped up to support sobriety experiences that are not necessarily 12-step. So, for instance, I'm a member of the Luckiest Club, which is Laura McCowan kind of accidentally founded it during the pandemic. It's a subscription service. I go to a few meetings a month. It's been amazing for me.
How has it been, last question as I wrap up, but how has it been on book tour? I'm sure people really, because this is so personal, it must resonate deeply with readers who then want to have this further connection with you.
So, you go on book tour and no one's read the book yet.
Unless they're a radio host.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I do get some questions, but I think people are attracted to the book for this reason, but I'm not getting a lot of questions about the book yet because people haven't read it. I welcome those, and I'll just put in a plug for my Substack. I have a Substack, and I have an Instagram account, and I love talking about these things with people.
Well, I can imagine how much, maybe the next book tour.
Maybe. Well, when it comes out in paperback in about a year.
Exactly. Carrie Mayer, it's been so fun to have you here. Thank you so much, and congratulations again on the book.
Thank you so much for having me.
Carrie Mayer's new novel is Summer of Love. Again, thank you. Coming up, Professor Hani Farid is trained in spotting deep fakes. Now he says he doesn't trust his own eyes. That conversation is next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
On All Things Considered, you get the big stories,
What are you hearing from sources inside the agency?
the pressing questions,
Congressman, how do you respond to that?
and moments of joy to keep you going.
It took me a few days. I perfected it.
Really? Can I hear that?
End your day on a high note with All Things Considered from NPR News.
This afternoon at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And the Museum of Science. From live science demonstrations to hands-on exhibits, families can explore the wonders of Earth's evolution and the frontiers of space this summer. Learn more at mos.org. And the Vermont Cheese Council, host of Vermont Cheese Week, September 13th through 20th. Attendees can cheese.com.
And New England Recovery Center, providing inpatient addiction treatment in state-of-the-art facilities located in Westboro, Mass. Learn more at newenglandrecoverycenter.org or by calling 1-877-MY-REHAB.
Local stories, live radio, and breaking news at your fingertips. Download the new GBH News app on the App Store or Google Play.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is the Culture Show on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. For more than half a century, one photograph became a focus of suspicion around the Kennedy assassination. Lee Harvey Oswald standing in his backyard with a rifle. Oswald said it was a fake. In 2015, Hani Farid and two colleagues reconstructed the photograph in 3D. They tested the details that had fueled suspicion for decades. Oswald's off-kilter pose, the direction of the shadows, and the length of the rifle. Each matched the physical reality of the scene. The photograph, they determined, was authentic. That kind of certainty is much harder to reach today. AI can contrive an atrocity that can spread around the world before anyone has time to expose it as a lie. It can also cast doubt on genuine evidence, a real bombing, a real crime, the real words of real people. We are now living in the misinformation age. And it's confounding even Hani Farid, who has spent his career developing ways to separate fact from fabrication. So if the world's leading deepfake expert can no longer tell fact from AI fiction, what happens to the rest of us? Hani Farid is a professor of computation and just communities, as well as of computer science at Dartmouth College. He's also the co-founder and chief science officer of Get Real Security. Hani Farid, welcome to the Culture Show. It's great to have you here.
It's good to be here with you, Jared.
Well, I don't know how great it is because I think we're all afraid right now about these images. And now you're talking about this in a New York Times piece and elsewhere about the difficulty you're experiencing. And you're one of the forerunners of looking at photographs, as I've just outlined. How do you describe the landscape right now?
Yeah, here's what's happening. So I've been doing this for a long time, as you said at the top of the hour, and up until I would say about 6 months ago, here's how a typical case would happen. So law enforcement, national security, media outlet, lawyer would just contact me, show me something, say, what do you think? Is real, is it fake? And I would say up until about 6 months ago, I would look at it and I usually knew, our visual systems are very, very good. And because we spend so much time looking at fakes, I would usually have a pretty good sense of my starting point. And then you bring in all the mathematics and computation and you really do things right, as you were describing with the Lee Harvey Oswald photo. And what happened about 6 months or so ago is I started feeling like my visual system was failing me. I was feeling like I would see real footage coming out of Iran and I'd think, I don't know. And I'd see fake footage and I'd say, I don't know. And that was the first time where I felt like my foundation was shaking. Now, don't get me wrong, the mathematics, the computation, they're great. They work great and they come to bear. But I was feeling and I think we said this in the New York Times piece, I felt like I was going blind. I mean, it just felt like all of a sudden, and it was quite rapid in some ways. And that failure of the visual system is disconcerting, not for me, by the way. I've got plenty of math and computer science to help me out. It's, as you were just saying, it's for everybody else. And that's sort of where my concern has gotten, is that I don't think that the average person anymore looking at content online can tell the difference between real and fake. And by the way, we have scientific studies to back that up. We do in lab settings where we show people images and video and have them listen to audio, and they're basically slightly better than chance when you ask them to do this task. And that is worrisome to me, that given that we live in a world where the vast majority of people get the vast majority of their content from, let's say, less than reputable online sources, i.e. Social media.
Well, let's give some examples of where you have seen the AI advancement be so tremendous over the last 6 months. How are they able to render images that you used to be able to suss out by looking at shadows and perspective and the horizon line and things of that nature?
Yeah. So I'll give you the one that I would say really shook me hard. So we'd all heard the story about the Iranian school being bombed, some 140 odd people, most of them schoolgirls, were killed. Horrific. I mean, brutal. Yeah. And a couple weeks after that news story broke, we got a video from a major news outlet saying, we think we have a video of what looks to be like a U.S. Tomahawk missile, which has a very distinct footprint, hitting the school. But we don't, and this is the world we live in now, we don't know if it's real. And I spent probably the better part of a Saturday and a Sunday analyzing it in every way imaginable. We measured the difference between when we saw the explosion and when we heard the explosion, and that would tell us, for example, how far the explosion. We were able to measure the size of the Tomahawk missile in the image to determine if in fact it is the same size as a physical Tomahawk missile. We analyzed the explosion using bespoke models that we'd created to tell whether something is real or not for explosions. We geolocated the image. We did all of these things, and we kept coming up with no evidence of manipulation, no evidence of manipulation. But here's where that rub is, a year ago, I would have said, that's it, it's over. Like, AI can't make these kinds of videos, but I wasn't sure. And I sort of got to the end of it. My wife said to me, she said, this is the first time I've seen you sort of agonizing over something like this. And part of it was, of course, it was a really important thing to get right. You don't want to, of course, accuse the U.S. Government of potentially killing 140 innocent people. But that was a big one for me. But then, if you just look of what's been happening in the Middle East and Iran, and before that it was in Minnesota, and before that it was Venezuela, and before that it was Gaza, and every world event, just the amount of fake content that we are now seeing is by far outnumbering the real content. And that muddying of the water just makes it so difficult for me, just day to day, just given the sheer volume, but of course for the average person online as well.
Well, and I haven't explained this. This is, you've kind of outlined it, but people are sending this to you all the time. People who want to verify their content. What percentage would you say is actually real, whether it's a government sending it to you or a news organization sending it to you now?
Yeah, tough question. I mean, I usually get, the tough stuff, right? I don't get the easy things, right? The easy things are fine. You don't need me to analyze the sharks swimming down Main Street. It's fine. By the way, all images and videos of sharks are fake. Just stop sending them to me. It's over. Like by the way, I'm not even sure sharks exist anymore. This is sort of the world I've come to occupy. I would say it's about 50-50. And here's the rub, by the way, and we see this in our studies, is when we analyze content and we find something wrong, as you said, a shadow, something in the geometry, the physics, something statistical, something is not natural, and we can pinpoint what is causing that, we usually can draw a fairly firm conclusion. We could say, look, here is something that is physically implausible. We know that AI does this, therefore, this is not authentic. But when we don't find evidence of manipulation or AI generation, think about the asymmetry, because you get to the end, you've done all these analyses and you've done all these things, and you say, we didn't find anything. That's different than saying something is authentic. What we really are saying is we find no evidence of manipulation. And then you're on slightly shaky ground. And we see this in our perceptual studies. When we show people videos, and the longer we show them the video, the more likely they are to find something wrong, because they eventually see a little glitch in it. Now, they never get that good, but they get better the longer you see it. But when something is real, they never get better because the lack of evidence is not evidence. They get to the end of the video and they say, well, I didn't see anything, but that doesn't prove it's real. And so there's this interesting asymmetry. And so in some cases, authenticating the real is in fact harder. Whereas, I found something, a fingerprint, something is wrong, let's call it a day.
Well, to me, one of the most frightening things is, and I guess with apologies for the disrespectful nature of this question, but does the work you do matter now? Because by the time you're looking at this, millions, if not tens of millions of other people have looked at it and moved on with their lives and decided they've seen something true.
Yeah, no, it's not at all disrespectful. It's absolutely the right question to ask. And I would say what we do is necessary, but it's not sufficient. I think it's important what we do, but you're 100% right, Jared, that usually, not always, but usually by the time I see something, here's what has happened. Something has gone online. It has 100,000, million, 10 million views. A reporter finds it, sends it to me. My team and I figure out what's going on. We talk to the reporter. The fact check goes out. Meanwhile, the number of views has gone up by 10x. We're sort of a postmortem. Yeah. So I would say helping the NPRs of the world get it right does absolutely matter. The courts of law, absolutely. Law enforcement, national security, absolutely. But do we then say, well, okay, Fareed and team figured it out. Okay, it's over. No, because the vast majority of those 10 million views are never going to see the correction. Even if they do, the disinformation is set in concrete. And let me give you a very specific example of that. You started off talking about the Lee Harvey Oswald photo, which predates AI by a decade. Well, what you didn't say is that after we did the analysis, after we showed that the things that people pointed to, the shadows and the pose and the size of the gun and all that were in fact physically correct, do you know what happened? People didn't say, oh, thank you, Professor Fareed. That was incredibly insightful. No, what they said is, you are a part of the conspiracy. By the way, I wasn't born when Kennedy was assassinated, but it didn't matter. Right? So that's the other part of it, is that once you start believing those lies, well, then it's very hard for the truth to penetrate. So does it matter? Yes. Is it sufficient? No, it's not. We need more.
I'm speaking with Hani Fareed, a professor of computation and just communities, as well as computer science at Dartmouth College. He's also the co-founder and chief science officer of Get Real Security. We're talking about AI imagery, photos, videos, and voice, which we'll talk about in a moment. But first, we're all rattled now. I can hear it in you. I'm so terrified myself about not being able to look at an image anymore and know it's real. Literally, just minutes before you came on, I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues about the Mitch McConnell photo, because I suddenly had this moment where I thought, I'm referring to the one that he recently disseminated, his office disseminated, to show that he is in fact healthy, he's alive, and people have called it the proof of life photo. And I wasn't sure what I was looking at. And then I doubted myself. Was that newspaper that he's holding to show, this is why they call it the proof of life photo, that he's alive on the day that it was released? Is that AI generated? And it's so profoundly disturbing to not be able to trust something anymore.
Yeah. With real consequences. Right? This isn't fun and games. We're talking about whether a sitting U.S. senator is alive or not. That photo was fascinating. By the way, for the listeners who didn't see it, we were asked by many outlets to analyze it. We did. Again, we found no evidence of manipulation. He seems to be holding a newspaper that was printed the day before. We analyzed it with a number of different techniques that we have developed, and there's no indication. But it didn't stop the speculation. It didn't stop the conspiracies. And by the way, we haven't seen him in public since that photo was released. So there's still a lot of questions. But if that photo was fake, well, then the conversation would have been very different. The fact that it's real doesn't really uncover what is a very bizarre situation where we haven't seen a sitting U.S. senator for 40 days now. But you're right, Jared, is that this is sort of where we live. And within seconds of that photo being released, seconds, the conspiracies were already off and running. It took nothing because we are so distrusting. And the question you want to ask yourself now is, how do we have a stable democracy, society, economy, when the vast majority of information we take in is from online sources? And if we can't trust anything we see, what's real, what's fake, how do we navigate the world? How do we make decisions? And it's not a rhetorical question. I really want to know, because I don't have a good answer to that.
Well, and part of the question is, what are the guardrails that are established by governments? But we're seeing our own government now, at least with the Trump administration, sending out AI-generated images, obviously some of them where the president may appear Jesus-like. We can tell that those are an illustration, but where are we seeing this change with what our own government is doing?
Yeah, first of all, I think this is a very bad idea. And I think this current administration is not thinking this through very carefully because the fact is that when you start, you're right, 100% of it is just meant to be propaganda and not to be taken seriously. But we've seen other examples where it's much more nuanced and it's not at all obvious that it's like some of these clearly caricature photos. And the question you want to ask yourself is, this administration will, in the same breath, clearly post things that are fake and then show you a Venezuelan drug boat being bombed from a drone. Why should I believe that? In fact, why should I believe anything? I mean, if you start mixing up fact and fiction, you're really muddying the waters. And there's going to become a time when you want people to believe you and you are eroding that trust. Put aside, by the way, this is beneath the White House. This is well beneath the White House to be doing this kind of thing. I think it's dangerous, even for their own self-preservation. But it also just adds to this culture, is that this has become now the norm. That when there are the events in the world, the first thing we see are fake, 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 before anything real comes out. The most striking one was when we went into Venezuela. The U.S. went into Venezuela, took the president. Before we saw any real photos of that, the internet was littered with fake photos that were very, very well done, by the way. And that was really strange and bizarre because then people started saying, wait, did this really happen? Because now you're seeing all these fake things of an event that actually happened, and that's very confusing as well. So I think it's all getting pretty weird. I don't think here in the U.S., there are good guardrails, either in the private sector or in the corporate sector. There is a little bit of movement. The state of California passed a disclosure law that says you have to label AI-generated content. The EU AI Safety Act has similar, but you and I both know that enforcing that is going to be exceedingly difficult. And certainly Russian state-sponsored disinformation campaigns are not going to abide by the state of California's laws. So I think they're all great. But I don't think we've gotten a handle on this from a regulatory perspective.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, this is where it gets frightening as well, because it might be one thing for people to see images of Mitch McConnell or a conflict that seems a world away and totally detached from, but this is coming for us. I was reading about what's happening on Zoom, and this is where we get to the voices now too, the audio that I was talking, I teased before. So not only do you have images and video being compromised, but where is AI going with voice, and how does it affect us as the individuals when it can come into our own lives?
Good. So it's for a while now, we've been able to create images that are hyper realistic, and the average person can't tell the difference. Voice was a quick follow, and video followed after that. But here's the thing about voice and video. It's not just that I can sit at my computer and take 15 seconds of your voice, Jared, clone it, type, have you say anything I want. I can do that, and it's actually pretty easy. Or take a still image of what I'm seeing on my screen right now, and then create a video of you saying or doing something. I can do that. But I can also do it in real time, over Zoom, over FaceTime, over Teams, over pick your favorite video conferencing platform. And I can do that on my laptop. So I can, for example, change my face, eyebrow to chin, cheek to cheek. That's called a face swap deepfake. I can drive an avatar of you. So I can take a still image of you in your studio right now. I can sit in front of my camera and I can move and animate you. And I can change my voice, which means now every interaction you have online, whether it's with your loved one, with your bank, with your boss, with somebody who's applying for a job, suddenly we don't even know who we're talking to in real time. And so that's gotten a whole new level of weirdness. And I can tell you, by the way, that cyber criminals are weaponizing this. The North Koreans have a multi-billion-dollar a year industry penetrating Fortune 500 companies as IT workers and in other areas in order to get a paycheck, install malware, steal IP. This is happening on a daily basis. We talked to one U.S. defense contractor that found 5 North Koreans in their organization. That's insane. But it all happens because so much of our day-to-day interaction is now remote, right? This is an incredible convenience, but it's also an incredible vulnerability.
For people who are watching us on our YouTube streaming channel, I want to point out that every image we've been showing is an AI fake. So we were just showing images of regular people. To your point, you think somebody calling from the bank. No, it's an AI generated images. I was just staring at our YouTube stream as I'm talking to you, thinking that how is that possible that that's fake? Because it looks so real. So final question for you. How do you find hope in all of this?
There are days. Look, there is something very exciting about this technology, and we shouldn't pretend otherwise. There's something really cool and really exciting. And I think when we figure out how to harness it, I think it will change the world in many positive ways. But if we do the same thing we've done for the last 25 years, which is to take our hands off the steering wheel and say, let Silicon Valley be Silicon Valley, I think it's going to end very badly. This is what we know. We should learn from the mistake of the last 2 decades, of what happened with social media and with the Facebooks of the world and the TikToks of the world. It's not great. So I think what we all have to do as citizens, as regulators, as our corporate overlords have to do is figure out, how do we harness the power of this technology while mitigating the harms? The one comfort I take in this, if I can say something positive, is the tenor of the conversations that I have with regulators and even with C-suite at the big tech companies is more encouraging than it was in the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years. 10 years ago, we was like, everything's fine, don't worry about it. And I thought, I don't think it is, but okay. I don't think everybody thinks everything is fine. Maybe nobody knows what to do about it, but at least people are saying, we should probably get a handle on this. And that at least is a step in the right direction. But I don't think we can't be passive. I think we have to really be very thoughtful and effortful at this and figure out how to harness the power of this technology to do great and exciting and creative things while mitigating the many, many, many very bad things that are already happening.
Well, honey, Fareed, it has been so great to speak with you, even though the subject matter may not be so great. Your first time on the show, I hope we'll have many, many more conversations. Thank you so much.
It's great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Hani Fareed is a professor of computation and just communities, as well as of computer science at Dartmouth College. He's also the co-founder and chief science officer of Get Real Security. Thank you again. Well, coming up, how artist Rosangela Reno is using actual images and photography to interrogate Brazilian history and immigration. That conversation is next on The Culture Show. Stay with us. That was so...
Trade. Huge responses from across Europe, from the Danish Prime Minister.
Climate. Picture this all filled with ice.
Security.
Not only do we need to end the war, we also need to prevent the next war.
These are global issues, and to understand them, you need a global perspective. I'm Carolyn Beeler.
And I'm Marco Werman. Join us for The World each and every weekday.
This afternoon at 3 on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And New Bedford Whaling Museum, presenting summer exhibits including Sailor's Valentines, Maritime Art from the Heart, Proteana, Susan Heidman, and Look Pleasant, Please, Early Portrait Photography in New Bedford, whalingmuseum.org. And Subaru of New England, the all-wheel drive 2026 Subaru Forester is committed to keeping loved ones safe on adventures this summer. Subaru retailer locations at subaruofnewengland.com. And the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority, committed to simplifying college planning for families over 45 years with trusted guidance, interactive tools, step-by-step videos, and more. MEFA.org.
GBH Daily is a newsletter that keeps you informed, connected, and ready to go every weekday morning. You can subscribe today and get it in your inbox at gbh.org/daily.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show live on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. What is remembered when people leave one country for another? What survives in family albums and public archives? And what is deliberately disappeared? An exhibition of the artist Rosangela Reno at the Museum of Fine Arts Boston explores the power of photography as it relates to her native Brazil. She interrogates how the past is preserved, how it's altered, and the vacuum left when it's erased. Titled Fazendo a America, Rosangela Reno and Histories of Memory and Migration in Brazil, the show brings together decades of work by the influential Brazilian artist. Run, don't walk, because this must-see show is only on through this Sunday, August 2nd. And joining me to talk about it all is Kristen Gresh, Senior Curator of Photographs and the exhibition's curator. Welcome to the Culture Show. It's great to have you here. We're re-meeting because we were first together as you walked me through this show a few months ago. I apologize for having this discussion so late, but I have not stopped thinking about everything that she presents, because as you pointed out to me in the beginning of our walkthrough, this is a photographer who doesn't take pictures. That's how she's described.
Exactly. She'd be very happy to hear that, as am I, and thank you. It's great to be here today. So Rosangela really thinks about how photography is used for all of us, how we preserve memories, how things are archived, and as you mentioned, what is remembered and what is forgotten in history.
Well, how does she do this without necessarily being the photographer who doesn't take pictures? How do we see her look at photography?
So Rosangela, ever since she was young, is fascinated by photo albums, discarded, photographs that were once tethered and had a story, become decontextualized. And she also has done a lot of work with archives. And one quick example, which is in the exhibition, it's called the General Archive, where she interrogates a theft from the National Archive in Rio, where 27 photographic albums were stolen. And those albums had the 40 years of urban renewal in Rio. So all of this documentation of this incredible urban transformation just disappeared, and these albums were taken away. So she's thinking as much about photographs that were made and preserve memories, but also about the absence of some of those images.
Well, for a little bit of our world history, what has she experienced through her decades of life and career that we see come to the fore in this Museum of Fine Arts exhibition?
Yeah, this makes me the question. One thing she really looks back to in her childhood is growing up during the Brazilian dictatorship between 1964 and 1984. Rosangela was born in 1962. And for example, the Red series, which is a group of 8 very large monumental photographs in which she has chosen these small military portraits that she found in discarded personal albums from across the world, Brazil, Russia, France, US. And she chose these military portraits and she's blown them up to be life-size. She's muted the colors and put a blood red color over them. So when you walk into the gallery, you see these large, it almost looks like just large red rectangles. And as you approach, you realize that, in fact, people almost look invisible. You have to really engage, and they're life-size figures, and each is a different person in a different military garb, often they're kind of either domestic settings or slightly touristic. But for her vision is to have us think about the role of photography. So it points back to a history of portraiture in the 19th century, studio portraits and others, but it also makes us think about the representation of military might and questions of representation and power.
Because all of these men and boys are in military uniform.
Exactly.
And what I think part of the reason that I have thought about this exhibition is so much is for one of the reasons you just said, that she's taken these small photographs and blown them up to massive size so that when we're standing in front of them, we're looking directly at them, at people who are our height. And we see we see them peering out beyond this blood red color, and it becomes a very unnerving effect.
It really does. And, she talks about how you really have to engage with it. And it's almost like her own cloudy memories of growing up during the dictatorship and thinking back to violence and all the, individual stories that get there. But also there's a portrait of someone from the U.S. There's a old Prussian and a young Prussian. It's a real range so not only to think about her own personal experience, but also how photography tells this much larger military histories, plural, across the world.
Speaking of what photography tells, to go back to the example you were just given of the urban planning archives in Rio that just disappeared, why is it that her photographs of these empty albums and boxes can be so visceral?
I think that's a great question. When you look at it, really is a visual diagram of the destruction and loss of this important slice of Brazilian visual history. And so to see her photographs, which are of empty boxes and they have identification labels or maybe like screws or nails or just the remnant of one album cover, to see that emptiness really makes you think about what was there, like how rich was the visual history that was once held in this box. And it's a really eerie feeling pointing you to the absence of these images.
This is her first, again, we're talking about Rosângela Reno and Histories of Memory and Migration in Brazil on view at the Museum of Fine Arts through this Sunday. I'm speaking with its curator and senior curator of photographs, Kristen Gresh. What did you see in her work that to make this the first major museum exhibition she's had in 30 years in this country?
I'm really fascinated by how her brain works as she interrogates how photographic archives and how photography itself works. And I was in her studio in 2023. I did a studio visit in Rio de Janeiro and had admired her work for a long time and the way she thinks about things. And I said to her, Rosângela, do you know that in Massachusetts, and particularly in Greater Boston, that there's a very large Brazilian population? And she said, of course I know. It's my generation. It's my home state of Minas Gerais. Everyone in my state, we all have some connection to a family member or a friend who's moved to Boston. And it was at that moment that the seed of this idea of what would it be like if the MFA could commission Rosângela to think about, is there an archive or how is the story, this long-standing story of Brazilian immigration to Massachusetts and to Greater Boston specifically, how is that told? And in particular, since Massachusetts is home to the second largest population of Brazilians in the United States after Florida, that it felt like she would be the perfect artist to look into this story and think about it and present it to Boston audiences and beyond.
Well, spoiler alert, you did. So tell me about the commission, which is one of the series of installations we find in this exhibition.
So Rosângela came. We were able to commission her. She came for a first visit in the winter of 2025. We spent 2 weeks in Somerville, Framingham, Everett, all around visiting restaurants, bakeries, churches, radio stations, soccer games, a jiu-jitsu center, really everything, everywhere that I could think of that would enable her to see the different Brazilian communities and presence in the area. She was deeply moved. On her last day here, we visited the Brazilian Times, the archive of the Brazilian Times. And the Brazilian Times is a newspaper that was founded in 1988 in Somerville, and it has been printed every Friday since. It is distributed nationally throughout the United States. It's fully in Portuguese, and it's really a way that connects Brazilian communities within the United States, but also back to Brazil. And Rosângela was fascinated by this. We had a fantastic visit. She then went back to Brazil. She thought about what the commission would be for several months, and then came back and said it's a 2-part project. It's going to be a gallery of 48 portraits and a bilingual newspaper inspired by the Brazilian Times.
Well, to talk about the portraits, they are striking in that we're seeing so many individuals, and while they're so different, there are so many commonalities to how she took these portraits. What becomes their hallmark as we see them all assembled together?
So Rosângela arrived on her second visit to take all of these portraits. I should say over half of the portraits are taken of Brazilians living here in Greater Boston. The other half are taken in Minas Gerais. And so you can't tell who's who throughout. Everyone is mixed together, but it shows this connection between Brazilians and their home country and between the two countries, really. And the hallmark that connects everyone is that Rosângela designed a a green hat, a green baseball hat, that has embroidered "Making America" or "Fazendo a America" on both the front and the back. So every hat is bilingual. English is either on the front or the back, and Portuguese is the other side. And so every sitter for all of these portraits is wearing this baseball hat and is covering their eyes. And for Rosângela, as she got to know and meet all these different members of Brazilian communities, she was struck, number one, of the major impact that Brazilians have on the urban landscape here. And she was also struck by the fear that was talked about and felt. And so her idea of using these baseball hats to hide people's eyes is a way of concealing their identity and really making us think about the forced invisibility of so many immigrants today in the United States.
While they're wearing a hat that conjures memories and association of the Make America Great Again hat, but different color, different messaging on those hats.
Exactly. There was in Brazil around the time in popular culture, and Brazilians know the story well, it was called the Battle of the Baseball Hats. A politician in Brazil wore a red U.S. baseball hat, and then there was another blue baseball hat that was made that said "Brazil is for Brazilians." And Rosângela has made a third hat, which is green. And Making America, I should say, Fazer America, is the expression in Portuguese in Brazil for going to move to the United States and make a better life for yourself. And so it's really this larger question of, living the, quote, American dream. And so she's asking us to really think about who makes America today.
In just a couple minutes we have left, or about a minute, I'm sorry to say, I have to ask you about the piece in particular that I didn't stop thinking about, which is called Operation Spiders, Bellbirds, and Traps, where we see 3 photographs and a camera lens focused on very specific people. What is she capturing in those 3 images?
So these 3 images each one is a triptych. They are 3 images from 3 different time periods in Brazilian history. The image on the left of each triptych is taken in 1968, mass protests during the dictatorship. The center image, which Rosângela herself did take those images, were taken in 1984 at the end of the dictatorship and the beginning of the democracy. Again, a large, manifestation protest, and then the right image is 2013 protests in Brazil during the democratic period. And so she's combined these. She's asking us to think about collective action and mass politics, and the lenses that she's placed on them are reminding us of the role that photography can play in both surveillance and identification. The word bellbirds in Portuguese was the name for the equivalent of an FBI informant who would go to a protest, take pictures of people that were considered to be subversive to the regime, and sort of call them out or start a file on them. So she is really asking this larger question about the role that photography plays within mass politics and in terms of identifying people. So
I have to say, it's so haunting. It's so haunting, especially to see the clarified vision of the people under those lenses amid those major protests. It's such a fantastic show, and it's the power of real photography coming out of the conversation we just had with Hani Farid. Unbelievable. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Jared. It's great to be here.
Fazendo a America, Rosângela Renault, and Histories of Memory and Migration in Brazil is on view at the MFA only through this Sunday, August 2nd. To learn more, go to the MFA's website. Kristen Gresh is the exhibition's curator and senior curator of photographs. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Culture Show. Tune in tomorrow for comedian and SNL alum Kevin Nealon. Plus, we'll be joined by Laurie Anderson, the one and only, to talk about her exhibition at Mass MoCA and upcoming performances at Tanglewood. Today's engineer is Bill Piacitelli, and we thank Brad Lewis and Bill Francis for producing our YouTube live stream. I'm Jared Bowen. Have a great day.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Spend your afternoon with us. Stay with us for GBH's All Things Considered at 4 and Marketplace at 6:30. But first, The World, a global view of today's headlines from the World Newsroom, right here on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you and members of the GBH Champions and Beacon Circles. These most generous annual contributors lead the way in sustaining GBH as a public media resource available and free to all. Learn more at gbh.org/support.
Through a mother's heart-wrenching lyrical poems, a new POV honors her son's legacy while depicting the reality of the unbalanced criminal justice system. Watch For Venida for Khalif tonight at 10 on GBH2.